Hello guys, welcome to stream. ഇന്നത്തെ ടൈറ്റിൽ വേറെ ഒന്നും അല്ല. ഇതെന്താ സംഭവം? എൻ്റെ FPS എൻ്റെ എല്ലാ ഗെയിംസിനും ഉണ്ടല്ലോ ഇത്. ഇതിങ്ങനെയാണോ? ഈ ഡോട്ടയിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ തോന്നിയായിരുന്നു, അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഞാൻ. ബട്ട് എനിവേസ് whatever. അല്ലല്ലോ. ഓ നല്ല സെക്കൻഡ്. Okay, I think this should be okay.
Delphine is a
Okay. എവിടെ? Okay, and the title ഇന്നത്തേത് വേറെ ഒന്നും അല്ല.
character played by Mary Bell Kirshner, a subservient hypersexual weeb fantasy. But where does Bell end and Mary begin?
ഞാൻ
Who is
രണ്ടു ദിവസം ഇങ്ങനെ കുറച്ച് ബിസി ആയിരുന്നുകൊണ്ട് ലൈക്ക് ആ ദിവസങ്ങളിലൊക്കെ ആനിമേസ് എല്ലാം പൈലപ്പായി ഇപ്പം എനിക്ക് 7-8 എപ്പിസോഡ്സ് കാണാനുണ്ട്. സോ ഐഡിയലി ഐ എം തിങ്കിങ് ഐ വിൽ വാച്ച് ദം ആഫ്റ്റർ മൈ സ്ട്രീംസ്.
She's funny.
And hopefully I won't play Dota again. I hope.
People.
She's very trolly.
You need to own up to what you've done.
when you've
Match
only ever seen
found.
her as a ravaging e-girl who's 50% horn dog and 50% epic troll, it's hard to imagine her as a real person. Belle Delphine was squirted out as Mary Bell Kirshner in Cape Town, South Africa. Man, between Pokemon and Belle, Africa's main export right now is simp-worthy women. She moved to England sometime before she was 12, and from what can be gleaned online, seemed like a typical teenager. If you've ever wanted
Wait,
the Jared
Pokemon's
Foden
African?
POV experience, first lose a bunch of weight by eating 6-foot-long subs a day, and then feel free to look through her Twitter and YouTube accounts from when she was 13 for such classics as "When you have lost your iPod." Not good. In some of her newer videos, she jokes about not having a dad and her mum being disappointed in her. While these could just be self-deprecating jokes with no basis, in much the same way that I joke about having a giant meaty cock, there could be some truth to these. She supposedly dropped out of school at age 14, putting her on the same level as the guys from my school who would organise fights in the McDonald's car park, before supporting herself with odd jobs, working as a nanny, a waitress, and barista. Around this time, she first dipped her toes into the world of cosplay photography on a now deleted Facebook page called Tinker Smell. I know what you're asking. What does Tinker Smell mean? Yeah, Tinker Smell these nuts. Most of what was posted here appears to be lost to time and space, and I don't really feel like trawling through the internet to try and find pictures of a 14-year-old girl, but I'd fathom a guess that it was sort of similar content to the early posts she made on her second Facebook and her Instagram. A lot of piercings and a lot of... is this even considered makeup? The kind of stuff girls who stand around the mall looking perpetually lost wear. Her only surviving social media from this era is her second Facebook page, which is still up to this day and has posts going back as far as 2013. In the first few years, she says she reached around 100,000 followers, and by late 2016, she began posting sponsored deals, so her page clearly had some decent traction. In August 2016, she posted a makeup tutorial video to her YouTube account.
Hi, I'm Belle, and today I'm going to be doing my everyday eye makeup for you. I've had a few people ask me how I do my makeup, so I thought I'd just make a quick and easy video of how I do it.
This is one of the only videos where she isn't in the Belle Delphine character and appears to just be herself, or what I'm going to refer to as Mary from now on. It's an unremarkable video, though you can't help but wonder if there's some alternate reality where she ends up becoming a benign beauty vlogger instead of turning into the arse spreader 3000. Around mid-2017, she started to post lewd content. Her words, not mine. My words would be, ugh, gross. It was around this time that, allegedly, she was contacted by someone, let's call him Captain Creep, who wanted to cut her in on a deal, scamming even creepier guys into paying exorbitant prices for nude images. The thing is, Belle didn't want to send her own nudes, and even if she did, she was 17, which is a bit frowned upon unless you're a billionaire. Creeposaurus Rex had a solution for that though. He would take random women's nudes online and pass them off as Belle's, and all Belle had to do was supply unique proof that it was her. A picture of her holding a timestamp, doing a pose requested by the scam victim, eating a jar of Nutella without using her hands, stuff like that. Belle expressed interest in saving money to go overseas, the primary goal of everyone living in England, and was coerced into playing along. Supposedly, her involvement was just creating the proof, and old mate handled all the rest. A year later, after Belle had a falling out with the guy because, you know, he scams people for fun, another clan flasher named Minty discovered that her nudes were some of the ones used to swindle these sad, strange little men. Belle reached out to Minty and apologised, as well as offered her the cash she'd made, but Minty declined, saying it would appear as though she was just out for money. She was primarily concerned with Belle receiving even more traffic off of Minty's content, when some of the guys inevitably leaked what they thought were Belle's nudes when they were in fact
background video but
I
still.
can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for Minty, especially since Belle refused to acknowledge it publicly and at least compensate Minty with a little bit of exposure. These e-girl streets, man, they're rough. So, either Belle was completely aware of what was going on and just didn't care, or this older man took advantage of a 17-year-old girl by dangling cash in front of her and talking up all the things she could buy with it. In my opinion, the truth is somewhere in the middle. If you read through the screenshots, the guy is definitely being manipulative. And while 17 is an age where you should probably know better, I mean, have you ever actually talked to a 17-year-old before? Outside of the intelligent and well-adjusted 17-year-olds who watch the channel, of course. On the other hand, Belle should have made a public apology, or at the very least, cleared the air around the whole Minty situation. But she didn't. LOL!
Going up.
From the start, her content was very alternative. A Zoomer scene kid with influences from anime, games, and of course, hentai, the Japanese art of making you feel sick. As time went on, she began to push more and more into the gaming cosplay sphere. This in itself isn't entirely unique. Jessica Negri has been riding that sweaty Deadpool-loving wave for years. Of course, Negri seems more like your dad's gamer girl, a Playboy model who got lost in an EB Games, while Delphine is carving out the petite anime girl niche that every Zoomer wants. Is she actually a gamer? Probably not. But here's the thing, it really doesn't matter. She's selling an illusion, a fantasy. And if you're already lying to these men that someone wants to sleep with them, convincing them you're a gamer isn't going to be that much harder, is it? As part of her lewd content, she began doing the now infamous ahi-gal face, a face derived from Japanese rage comics, which was later appropriated by hentai. It should be noted that, from the beginning, she would often infantilize herself, appearing, acting, and dressing much younger than she really is. In 2018, not long before her 19th birthday, she uploaded a room tour video that looks like it belongs to a preteen, not a pre-20. In her Patreon info section, she mentions that she's into DDLG, which is not short for Doki Doki Literature Club, but for Daddy Dom Little Girl. This is a thing that Mummy and Daddy do. Where the man plays the role of a daddy figure and the woman plays the role of a little girl. Now look, I'm not going to hate on someone for dressing and decorating their room how they want. And if two consenting adults want to do whatever makes them happy behind closed doors, I really don't give a shit. However, the point should be made that there is a sizable amount of people online who would subscribe to someone role-playing as this little girl character with ulterior motives, if you catch my drift. To this end, Belle even had braces installed just before her 18th birthday, despite showing no real signs of crooked teeth beforehand. Should Belle be blamed for scamming pedos online? Probably not. Should this type of behavior be encouraged? She continued posting cosplay and suggestive imagery on her Facebook and Instagram until March 2018. Where she succumbed to the logistical eventuality for all women online and created a Patreon where she started posting lewd photographs. Her tiers range from the $1 chode tier to the $2,500 YouTuber bait tier, popularized by Willie Nee and Pyrocynical's videos. You'll notice that while rhyming, lewds aren't actually nudes. Her Zimbabweans are always a millimetre away from exposure, and therein lies the genius of it. Being a tease isn't anything new, but capitalising on it so that foul men who look like muck from Pokemon will pay a hearty fee for another few scraps of skin, love. That's just part of her strategy. In Belle's own words, once it's out, and she's totally right. I hate to have to tell you this, but under all that pink lace, it's probably just a pussy. What if it was flat like a Barbie though? Without revealing it, her piss flaps are essentially that thing in the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. A stand-in for whatever you think would be best. Maybe it'll finally be the thing that fulfills you most. You've got a pretty girl showing her bits online and implying she's a fucking epic gamer.
But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction.
Being fucking gross and weird. I believe this one feature alone is responsible for her massive growth. Sure, a pretty girl dressing up like Diva and teasing a look at her beef curtains is gonna sell no matter what. But these bizarre stunts of what have made her into a household name. From rather innocuous things, like hopping on the latest TikTok meme trend, to the sort of shit you'd see in a fine arts degree final, such as chewing a raw egg, shell and all, to pouring milk and cereal down her top, to pouring raw eggs down her top. Starting to see some trends here, Belle. The appeal was twofold. They kept you watching, just to see what she'd do next, and they helped to ground her and show off a bit more of her funnier side. If cosplaying as Chun-Li was step 1 in infiltrating the gamer community, step 2 was creating self-aware meme content that pastiched the idea of a sex worker, and made her feel more like a friend you'd shitpost with on Discord, instead of some unattainable beauty in a fantasy world. She's silent in almost all of her videos, probably because when she does talk, she sounds like cheerio, eyes are right, fit bird, yeah.
Oi bruv, don't make me cane you. It's gonna run you about 40 quid. That's 20 quid per flap.
20 quid for a look at me
roast beef.
1, 2,
80 quid. Go down to the pub.
Spike down
a bottle of Cheerio. Alright.
In it, you fucking. Don't make me cane you.
If I would.
One enemy
You wanna
remaining.
get a look at his fucking fanny, mate? Fucking. Did that come out Irish? I can't. I've been trying to do this for 20 minutes.
These stunts helped surge her Patreon to crazy levels. At its peak in June 2019, she was making an estimated $90,000 a month. That's a lot of pink wigs. This peak coincided with one of her most elaborate pranks, creating a Pornhub account. If you don't know what Pornhub is, don't worry, I had to look it up as well. It's sort of like a competitor to YouTube, sort of like Vimeo or Disney+. After over a year of teasing her chipolatas, Belle posted to Instagram saying, if this post receives 1 million likes, I'll create a Pornhub account. In an inspiring display of how we as a society can put aside our differences and come together for the betterment of our species. Almost 2 million brave souls like Belle's post, all for the common cause of wanting to see a bit of flange. True to her word, Belle followed through. Sort of. Her Pornhub account really is a masterclass in trolling betas, with videos such as Belle Delphine strokes 2 big cocks, showing her enjoying the company of a pair of chickens, to Belle Delphine POV doggy style, where she acts as though you're a cute dog and feeds you dog food, which, to be fair, several furries have definitely gotten off to regardless. The reaction to this stunt was mixed on all sides. Some thought it was a brilliant stunt that took a surprising amount of effort, while some fans came out feeling betrayed. Following this stunt, she actually won the award for Top Celebrity at the 2019 Pornhub Awards, beating out the likes of Kim Kardashian, Tana Mongeau, and your mum. Still riding the wave of betrayed beta rage, she exploded into the mainstream with her most popular stunt to date, selling her used teeth.
Reloading.
Selling her used bath water.
Flooding them.
Rise up, gamer boys. It's time to get your game girl.
All in my bot. Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade.
This isn't a new thing for cam girls. Selling your used underwear is common and available at minikudostore.com. But Bathwater continues her parody of the cam girl stereotype that helps set her apart. Selling her panties might be considered too deviant, but Bathwater, that's got a big green Susan Wazowski $ written all over it. This perfect balance of outlandish parody helped it slip into the mainstream, resulting in dozens of articles being written about the phenomenon and the Big Bell herself. Hell, there's a good chance your parents have heard of her, and your dad's probably on her premium Snapchat. With the popularity came the memes, and with the memes came the hoaxes. Someone made an identical looking website selling gamer girl piss, which, if that's your piss, please drink more water. Someone also said that her water was actually herpes water, which honestly would have worked as a selling point if it were real. People had also allegedly gotten hospitalized after drinking it, resulting in Bell herself having to put out a statement calling this, the herpes rumor, and unfortunately the piss, fake. To be fair, even if it was real, I feel like that's less on her and more a good argument for natural selection. In a surprise twist, on July 10th, 2019, Bell posted her last post to Patreon. According to someone who probably has the skin texture of wet bread, her last post to her exclusive Patreon Snapchat wasn't much later, during August. There are two reasons for this sudden disappearance. In a recent interview with Lad Bible, she says that she was doxxed on 4chan, which resulted in her getting death threats, people posting stuff on her door, and loitering outside her house. The one true way into any girl's heart. She even managed to get her house at the time blurred on Google Street View, which I feel like would make it stand out more than if it just wasn't. Potentially fearing for her life, she probably decided to just take a step back while she relocated and let the hype die down. Another factor in her self-imposed exile was Instagram yeeting her account into a bin. On July 19th, 2019, her Instagram account with over 4.5 million followers was banned due to violating guidelines. This actually wasn't the first time that she'd lost her account. Back in December of 2018, she had her account banned for a couple of days, according to posts on her now deleted second account. This new banning coincided with her account being mass reported for nudity, pornography, and flashing your clam, which, to be fair, she did do a fair bit of. This mass reporting campaign was supposedly the result of enraged gamers betrayed by her Pornhub stunt, but I couldn't find anything verifying this as the point of origin. According to Business Insider, a spokesperson from Instagram clarified that it wasn't banned as a result of mass reporting, but rather for breaking the aforementioned community guidelines, declining to state which ones in particular. The big fucking Bell herself said in a now deleted Patreon post that it was supposedly a technical issue that Instagram was working on. However, it appears the only technical issue is that whatever she was posting was technically an issue, and her account was never recovered. Following her banning and her seemingly random disappearance from Patreon, nobody heard from the pink-haired menace for months, and her patrons quickly started to drop off. Of course, that's all relative. Even at her lowest, she still had close to 1,000 patrons. A far cry from the 3,000 she had in June, but if you asked almost anyone with a Patreon, they'd kill to have anywhere close to 1,000. Speaking of, consider joining the Mini Kudos Patreon to see this video and more with all the spread asses, uncensored and uncircumcised, videos 2 days early, and director's commentary. Also, I get the feeling that Susan Waluigi isn't going to be particularly impressed with this video since it's a bit risque, but I don't want to have to change the topics that I'm interested in just because YouTube says that it's not going to promote them as much. So if you could consider giving this video a like or subscribing if you're not already, that should offset any damage that they might do. Cheers, you fucking good cunt. After months of silence and conspiracy theories ravaging the community, she posted a mugshot and claimed that she'd been arrested after vandalizing someone's car for stealing her hamster at a party. Unsurprisingly, the claim is somewhat dubious. The image has a Metropolitan Police watermark in the corner, despite none of the other mugshots on their website having one, and it supposedly didn't appear on their website at all. News website and great name for a CBT channel, Mashable, reached out to the Metropolitan Police and said they were unable to disclose any information regarding the arrest due to something called the Data Protection Act. From my understanding, the Data Protection Act appears to be an act within the UK, primarily concerned with the protection of data. Consider this, however. 3 days prior, on the 4th of October, the H3 podcast commented on her disappearance and suggested that she might be in legal trouble as a result of shipping her bathwater.
Well, anyway, her real store is offline, which makes me wonder if she got into legal trouble. Because shipping bathwater, I don't think is legal.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
Especially internationally.
While this doesn't appear to be true, it's very likely that Belle saw this podcast, as she's known to be a fan of H3, having even sent them a jar of her saliva during the bathwater saga, and I'm just so numb to all of this. That just sounds totally reasonable to me at this point. It's entirely possible that she saw the legal troubles conspiracy theory and just decided to run with it. Yet another publicity stunt to add to her long list. After another month of going to the store for smokes, Belle posted her 4th video to YouTube, named How to Become Belle Delphine. It is easily her strangest video, and goes some way to explain her absence. Oh my god. Unlike almost anything else the Belle character has posted, it's hardly sexual, and even the parts that are risque are more gross than tantalizing, like making bread from a yeast infection. She mentions her Patreon as a joke in passing near the end of the video, but doesn't link to it, which makes me think this is less of a publicity stunt to earn more money, and more of a girl just venting her frustrations. It really is hard to distinguish whether this is the ultimate troll or a cry for help buried under 50 layers of irony. If doing a fake out hub was meant to fuck with horny baiters, maybe this video was made to fuck with alpha males making video essays on her, like me. But in the context of everything that happened around this video, something tells me it's a bit more genuine than she'd care to admit. She speaks of being afraid of growing irrelevant.
Belle Delphine must have her bathwater, otherwise she becomes irrelevant really quickly.
While also lambasting the negative side of fame. From your detractors trying to tear you down,
these will warm us up when people are mean. Like when people say you're weird and have daddy issues.
to your obsessive fans sending you sausage stills. She also mentions that she has identity issues and is worried she'll forget who she really is. Perhaps worried she might begin to perceive herself as her fans. This isn't exclusive to her either. Well, the stabbing chicken breast with a razor blade is, but many creators have mentioned the perceived disconnect between how they act on camera and their true self.
You know, they see me in the videos being an asshole, and it's like, that must be him in real life.
Taking notes on me.
Yeah. And makes people realize that, you know, I'm just like them. You know, I'm not any different.
It's pretty funny because you're actually, like, kind of the opposite of that in person.
Bella's written herself into a corner, so to speak. People don't see a real woman. They see her as one of those bloody Chinese porn cartoons you're always watching. A 2D image whose entire existence is nudity and memes. Sure, she should have known that this could have happened. But really, if you're a teenager making cosplay pictures for Instagram and it suddenly blows up, I mean, there's no real way to prepare for that. In her recent interview with Lad Bible, she talks about the importance of being able to take a break from the internet, while also mentioning that there's no reason to just immediately get away from it.
One enemy remaining.
Breaking your leg, of course. It is later revealed that part of the reason her hiatus was extended for so long was due to an injury sustained while jumping into a kiddie pool, forgetting that she's not actually a child. She just acts like the pedophiles online.
Please, no.
Following this, she went completely off the radar. No more posts, no more tweets, no more stunts,
round in the
nothing.
half.
Eagle-eyed sex offenders spotted she would occasionally change her followers on Twitter, implying she was still using it. The fans started to get a bit crazy, desperately posting to her Patreon's community tab, wondering when she'd return. One particularly disgruntled fan created a subreddit tracking every day she was earning money from Patreon, but not uploading content. Some of his information was actually quite useful for this video, so thanks for that, mate. But on the other hand, this guy is such a clown that I feel only one person can really do him justice.
Here.
Any other girls that are like Belle? I recommend
Don't you ever fucking compare Belle to this hideous, deplorable man-beast again. Her eyebrows are thicker than racing stripes, and that's the only thick thing on her. Her tits and ass are so tiny. Not to mention her entire body is riddled with tats.
I
don't. What's funnier, the fact you got scammed,
Wait.
or the fact you even paid her?
1. I didn't get scammed. 2.
Switching
I have
sides.
content that will never see the light of day, and I'll have it forever. This is a prize in and of itself. I'll rejoice every time knowing that I have content that freeloaders like you will never ever get to enjoy, that you will never get to know how fucking epic this content is. And you're just saying like, oh, I don't care. Oh, you're just an incel or a simp or a new term. No, you do care. You post here and you grab the limited amount of content you can get your grubby little hands on. You do care, and you're envious of all the content you will never see or even know about that I possess. Stay butthurt. Again, if your criteria for girls like Belle are inclusive of 1, human female, 2, existing, then okay. They are like Belle, in that they are breathing human females, but none of them look like Belle. They don't have Belle's epic body proportions, and are nowhere near as sexually attractive. So no, none of these ugly whores look like Belle, or even come close to Belle. There are this many square centimeters of human skin. This is the size of an external lady. The diameter of both female areolas combined is this amount.
Okay, come on, play together.
The diameter
Play together.
of a female butthole is 2.5 centimeters. So, the
Please play together.
of female sexual organs aggregate to 22.5 centimeters. The percentage of external female organs total surface area is 0.1126455 944,308. And rounded up, this is about 0.11%. When you say you can't fap to Belle because she doesn't show full nudity, you are saying that you can only fap to 0.11% of Belle's body, a fraction of a fraction of a percent. This is why everyone thinks you're fucking stupid when you say, I can't fap unless I see her nipples. Loose vagina skin and butthole. I can't fap because she censors her pics. How fucking degenerate can you possibly get?
One of the biggest critiques you could give Belle, besides being a woman, was the lack of updates to her Patreon during this period. Say what you will about them, because it's really funny to, but her fans were clearly paying for a product that she wasn't delivering. At no point did she post an update explaining why she needed to take a break, instead opting to rake in a hefty passive income for doing literally nothing. As funny as it is to see thirsty boys getting swindled, it's a pretty shitty way to treat your fans. Had she really done the con of a lifetime? Had she kicked up a storm, made a packet, and then left to live a normal life? Well, no, obviously, because there's like 7 more minutes left on this video. Like her ravenous fans edging the hope of her eventual return, she exploded back into the scene with her I'm Back music video, a parody of Tekashi 6ix9ine's Goober, sung by the girl who did the OK Boomer song. Weirdly enough. Tekashi himself declined to comment, but we can assume that Belle is not in fact Treyway. The video, like most of Belle's content, really pushes the limits of what can be shown on YouTube and was unsurprisingly age restricted. If you can claw your way past the bright colours and girl ass, this video actually deals with a lot of the same topics brought up in her How to Be Belle Delphine video, mocking the people who would try to bring her down and even referencing growing up without a father. If the previous video was venting frustrations surrounding how she's perceived online, then this video appears to be owning them, perhaps having had the time to reflect and work through these issues. Ironically, for a video titled How to Become Belle Delphine, it actually showed off more of her true self, Mary, and less of her fake Belle persona. Meanwhile, I'm Back shows her once again as Belle, with any semblance of her real self completely repressed. This idea is further elaborated on at the end of her recent plushie gun video. After 2 minutes of her pink-haired self jiggling about for your amusement, she ends the video with a shot of her hanged body, brunette hair specifically placed to make it more visible to camera. Meanwhile, the purpose of the I'm Back video was obviously to promote her OnlyFans, where she would be, unsurprisingly, taking sacrilegious pictures that will give any viewer a one-way ticket to HE double hockey sticks. Unlike her Patreon, there's only one tier, $35 a month. A bold price to pay when I can search fucking genuinely real spread girl ass, oh my god, and get 20 million results. Now, it's hard to know exactly how much money she's making from this. While she did initially show how many subscribers she had, after 6 hours of being live, she hid them. Before hiding them, she had around 4,000 subscribers, meaning at $35 a pop, she's making at an absolute bare minimum $112,000 a month after OnlyFans' 20% cut. Keep in mind that these subscribers were only from the first 6 hours of being live, and with the I'm Back video sitting on around 30 million views at time of recording, she's likely caught thousands or possibly tens of thousands more in her fish-flavoured honey trap. And honestly, God bless her. Get that bag, queen. You should probably cancel your Patreon though, because you're kind of still scamming all those people. Since her return, she's fully embraced the Belle Delphine character and all of the lucrative revenue options that have come with it. But every now and then, the cracks still show. In a now deleted tweet, she, as Mary, laments how everybody thinks they know who she is, but literally nobody does. We forget that behind these outlandish characters you see online is a living, breathing human being. One dealing with their own anxieties and fears, and one who has absolutely wiped two hard ones and had their fingers go through the TP for a pleasant surprise. After spending the last 2 months researching this strange pink thing, I still don't think I can comfortably say who she really is, but that's okay. Too often do we think we've got someone figured out, jump to conclusions, expect the worst, and attempt to condense the infinitely complex inner workings of the human brain into a tweet to own some 12-year-old online. The bizarre facsimile that your favorite creator puts on can be deceiving, and in Belle's case, dehumanizing. Critique them, enjoy them, make jokes about them. But just remember, at the end of the day, when the camera's turned off and the spotlight's out, they look in the mirror and see the exact same thing you see. A little bitch. Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you could predict where this final safe space would be, and the immense tactical advantage you would gain by parking your clan there and sack-tapping any combatants who entered. Take a guess which clan found themselves in this safe space hours before the fog rolled in. The final location of this tournament, Al Kharid Palace, was especially advantageous to hold, as there was only one entrance that turned into a massive bottleneck.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
Which Rot members could easily defend, leading to their victory. In fairness to Jed and Rot, ex-RuneScape mod Matt K conceded that while it was entirely possible for Jed to have access to that information, he believes it was unlikely he leaked it.
So there was no way he leaked the end game, like days before, or how was that even decided?
I don't think he could have done. You could easily find it out, but I don't think he was that involved with them back in the first few.
2017's Deadman tournament, on the other hand, was won by DDoSing is short for distributed denial of service and basically involves overloading someone's internet connection with so much traffic that it has to step outside for a quick smoke to calm down, disconnecting them from the service in the meantime. Thankfully, this is all quite illegal, as well as requiring the IP address of the personal service you're trying to attack. Information the standard RuneScape player probably wouldn't have access to, unless they were, say, a junior content developer working for Jagex. After learning from the bottleneck problem the previous year, 2017's Deadman mode saw the final 200 players teleported to small islands, where they were then randomly divided and forced to fight to the death. These players were whittled down to the final 4, including one member of Rot, who used his superior knowledge of the game to outwit his opponents and come out on top. Is what I would like to say, but instead, both of his opponents mysteriously disconnected mid-fight, making them easy targets for him to clean up and claim first place. Sensing something fishy going on, Jagex conveniently disqualified him for botting because they couldn't prove it was him or an associate disconnecting his opponents. Well, and because he was botting. This resulted in True Fox, the runner-up who was disconnected from the finals, receiving half of the first place prize, with the remaining half going to charity. By this point, the community had grown incredibly suspicious of Mod Jed, with the mounting accusations against him even prompting several news articles. While most likely
I guess എൻ്റെ അക്കൗണ്ട് വേറെ ഉപയോഗിക്കുകയാണ്, so I'll play. I guess I'll play Apex. ഇത് പെട്ടെന്ന് തീർത്തിട്ടാണ് എനിക്ക് ആനിമേ കാണാൻ.
a symbolic gesture, he attempted to calm the community by announcing that he would be stepping down as a member of ROT. Now, it is entirely possible that Jed had nothing to do with the Deadman fiasco, a sentiment again echoed by Multiple K. But it is interesting that Reign of Terror have been unable to win the Deadman tournament since Jed was fired from Jagex. Oh, you're wondering why Jed was fired? Well, all he did was... Up until now, the allegations made against Jed were just that. Allegations. Very plausible allegations, dripping with suspicion sauce and wrapped in charbroiled coincidence, but allegations nonetheless, and ones often perpetuated by rival clans with nothing to lose. That was until Thursday, July 5th, 2018, when Reddit user MazrimLol posted to the 2007 Scape subreddit, complaining that their account had been hacked and 45 billion gold had been stolen. As we saw in the coverage of Venezuela's gold farming scene, RuneScape gold is surprisingly liquid, and were Mazrim to have sold this for real money, they estimate it would have been worth around $30,000. Naturally, the majority of people replying had little sympathy for Mazrim, and assumed they were either sloppy with their account security or actually had sold their account and were now having regrets, which are both reasonable assumptions to make. Mazrim insisted they were hacked, and that there may well be foul play happening within Jagex. Dozens of these mysterious hackings continue to pop up, often with Jagex moderators informing the user that a huge amount of their personal information had been compromised, unaware that this breach was occurring within their own company. In an interview with the OSRS podcast, ex-Jagex mod Matt K confirms that ModJed was using Jagex's back-end account recovery system in order to recover accounts. The process you use when you need to have your password reset or email changed because you can't log in. Using these moderator tools, he would instead send the details to himself, log into these recovered accounts, and then make off with all of the valuables inside. It is believed he would scout for accounts to hack by looking for streamers who engaged in arena staking, which is essentially gambling, whose wealth he could confirm by watching the stream. There are also reports of a suspicious player asking others to bet high sums of money, and once they accepted and proved they could, this shady character would back out, with the wealthy player being hacked not long after. Whether these methods are true or not, what we know for sure is that ModJed made off with hundreds of billions of gold, which Jagex valued at roughly $250,000. The real kicker here is that, while stealing money is an understandable if scummy incentive, Jed would also destroy all of the untradeable items.
Does he have licensing or something? He's just like rebooted the video,
no
right?
benefit to him. But some members of the community believe that he was doing this in order to hamstring rival clan members. Even worse, in order to access their back-end account recovery system, Jed would impersonate other employees at Jagex.
Because he was pretending to be other people, and he was faking his profile as somebody else. The people who are responsible for making those decisions pulled into meetings, and disciplinary meetings, saying, "Look, you've given away this account. You shouldn't have done that." Because that's how strict the password requests are. If you grant password requests, it gets checked, and if it's done incorrectly and too many are done, you end up losing your job. And there were people on the cusp of losing their job because what he was doing, and he didn't give a monkey's about that. He was just worried about getting the money.
Whether Reign of Terror was involved in this process or not is unknown, but let me know what you think in the comments. Following an investigation, Jagex put out an important announcement, which goes over the situation in exceptionally vague terms. They state that an employee has been dismissed following gross misuse of moderator privileges. While no names are specifically mentioned, it didn't take players long to discover that Mod Jed's Twitter account had been banned, along with his personal RuneScape account. The players who had their golden items stolen also found them fully restored. This is an exceptionally rare move from Jagex, who didn't even restore items during the infamous Falador massacre. But given the extremely bad press that Jed had generated for them, I imagine they wanted to reassure the community that you're not going to permanently lose your items due to a rogue J-mod. Years later, Jed managed to successfully argue in court that he was unfairly dismissed by Jagex. The UK has very strong laws around sacking employees, and while the judge agrees that Jed's behaviour would have resulted in his dismissal either way, Jed argued that the process that Jagex took to investigate his misbehaviour was heavily biased. Essentially, Jagex went into the investigation of the stolen gold with Jed already pinned as the likely suspect, searching for evidence they could link to him instead of investigating the stolen gold and seeing where the evidence led. Jed was hoping to win back both his job and the wages he had lost during the period of his unfair dismissal. But since the judge concluded that he would have lost his job whether the investigation was done correctly or not, he was denied these unpaid wages. As for getting his job back, well, no. He did manage to walk away with £1,008 for his troubles, a fraction of the 217,000 quid that the document alleges he stole. Realising he had committed career seppuku thanks to the mountains of bad press that pop up when you Google his name, Jed Sanderson went on to double name change in real life, possibly to something like Ted Sanderson or Ned Flanderson or Steve.
If you apply for a job as Jed Sanderson and they just type your name into Google, all you get is pages and pages of what he did. So he was never getting a job, so he had to change his name.
Reign of Terror would continue on their reign of terror. Jagex would go on to run Deadman tournaments with just as much drama as when Jed worked there, before retiring the mode in 2020. Many kudos would continue his long tradition of not knowing how to end a video. After some more wacky MMO drama, why not choose between my other RuneScape scandals video or my World of Warcraft scandals video? Welcome to Mini Scandals, the series where we pull up an ice cold popcorn and some freshly popped soda and explore the dramas that grip the world's fandoms. Today we're cracking some packs, tapping some lands, and desperately trying to ignore the fact that our opponent smells like roast beef as we dive into the spell-slinging world of Magic the Gathering. Cardboard crack, wizard poker, or solitaire for the sexually impaired. Magic the Gathering is a cultural phenomenon that has long since taken the world by storm. First released in 1993, Magic the Gathering was the world's first trading card game, combining the fun of trading pictures of girls' boobies that you found under your older brother's bed with a game of tactics, all dipped in a delicious coat of fantasy goodness. As we saw in my World of Warcraft video, people who foregoed bathing in order to memorize the origins of the dwarves aren't known for their high charisma rolls, and so a series of salacious scandals was inevitable. Don't get me wrong, I love Magic and the amazing community around it, but how could I not talk about the world of Magic might be full of evil dragons, demons, and a series of monsters that want to steal your skeleton in a variety of fun ways. But in real life, becoming a villain just requires you to cheat at a children's card game. Our first story revolves around Alex Burdencini, an infamous Magic player who had previously found some success on the tournament scene, nabbing the Star City Games Player of the Year award in 2010. Cheating in Magic comes in many forms, such as the cool sleight of hand David Blaine magician style, where you used advanced card wizardry to make cards appear where you want them to and not where you don't, and the lame, boring loser way of just Alex The accusations levelled against him read like the sort of rookie mistakes a new player would make. From drawing an extra card in his opening hand to casting spells he shouldn't be able to. Not only is Alex willing to cheat, but he's even willing to cheat while being recorded, which either means he was born 1 mana short of a brain screen, or that he cheats so frequently that he forgets when he's meant to stop. I'll try and keep this simple, but in this example, Alex has a creature, a great glass spell, that his opponent kills. It goes to his graveyard, but luckily for Alex, he has a second one in his hand, so he plays it again. His opponent really doesn't want him to have another, so again, he kills the second kill. Now watch what happens here. Instead of placing it in his graveyard like he's supposed to, he motions as though he's moving the card toward the graveyard, but instead whips it back into his hand. Because there's a Kira clearly visible on his graveyard, it's assumed to be the second one. So when he plays the Kira he slipped into his hand, everyone just assumes that he had a third. Even the commentators seem confused for a second, before deciding that they must be the ones who are mistaken and moving on.
Is that another Kira? Wow.
That is oh, it is another one.
Yeah, that's his third. He only has 2, right?
This cheat was ultimately fruitless, as Alex ended up losing a couple turns later anyway, but it was just another example of Alex's willingness to take advantage of his opponent's trust in order to give himself whatever edge he could. Alex received his first 18-month ban from the game in December of 2011, and while we don't know which specific incident led to this banning, with the mountain of evidence available, it's hardly surprising. So a Magic player gets banned for cheating. Big whoop. Does the potent agree for decades of pedophilia? Of course, what sets Alex apart is his chronic inability to stop cheating. You might think that after being literally banned for cheating, he will eventually make a triumphant answer. It might be pertinent to stop cheating. Like a Saturday morning cartoon villain, Alex to the scene in 2013, only to be banned again in 2014. This second banning was supposedly due to the acclamation of multiple game rule violations, which are mistakes during play that don't necessarily denote cheating, as they could just as easily come from a lack of skill. Of course, to quote an article written by his ex-best friend, "I have never seen Alex make a mistake that doesn't favour him." It's possible that the judges responsible for Alex's second ban simply couldn't prove that he was actively cheating and not just being a sloppy player, which is likely why he only received a 3-year ban as opposed to a lifetime. Once he was unbanned in 2017, Alex slithered his slimy self back onto the competitive scene, even making the top 8 of the Grand Prix tournament in LA. At this point, Alex was reviled amongst the Magic community for not only making a mockery of the game, but for somehow skirting a lifetime ban each time. And his Alex has since cleared his act and attempted to make amends by teaching judges and other Magic staff how best to catch a cheater in action. Just kidding, he was caught cheating multiple times and received a lifetime ban in 2019.
Damn, he's good looking.
What about?
Alright, gentlemen, I know we're all very excited to participate in today's card tournament, but I just got word from upstairs that we gotta watch this edutainment video first. So, eyes up here, not on your cards, huh?
You might have noticed that your body is going through some changes. This is a process called puberty.
The Magic Grand Prix.
Hair will start to grow in weird places. The best way to combat this is with a little bit of help from our friends over at
Magic players.
My name is Pete U. Blubber, and I'm here to show you how the Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0 is the perfect solution to all of your pesky pubic problems. First up, we have the Lawnmower 4.0. This little baby can help deal with all sorts of nasty leg, chest, and beard hairs. Featuring revolutionary no-neck technology. Sorry, man. And a fully waterproof design. The Lawnmower 4.0 comes with a handy LED built in, so you can squeeze in a quick shave in the alleyway out the back of your main girl's parents' house. Not only does Manscaped help keep your bubonic plague under control, they keep your pits and bits feeling fresh with their anti-shaving, crop preserver, and crop reviver. Really, guys? Go to manscaped.com today and get 20% off plus free international shipping and 2 free gifts when you use code
Many kudos.
at checkout.
I'm not sure why that turned into an advertisement. But, hey, let's play some cards, huh? How about some Texas Hold'em? Goldfish? That was too easy. What do you guys want to play? I don't know how these work.
A tournament disqualification, or DQ, is one of the harshest penalties you can enact on a player. Second only to insistence that, no really, you should be wearing deodorant when you leave the house. And as such, are only reserved for the most extreme cases of obvious cheating or otherwise abnormal behaviour. Here are some of my favourite examples of some of the wacky ways that people manage to get themselves a one-way ticket to Dairy Queen. Olivia Ruel, Grand Prix Brisbane, 2007. His opponent showed up wearing a pair of highly reflective sunglasses that he had hanging from his shirt, allowing Olivier to see his cards in the reflection. The year prior, Olivier had received another disqualification and was somewhat on edge. So when he was confronted by a judge, he lied and said that he couldn't see his opponent's cards. The irony here is that, in the end, the judges determined that it wasn't actually Olivier's fault. It was his opponent's for showing up wearing clothing that could potentially reveal his hand. And yet, Olivier was disqualified anyway, for choosing to lie to the judge in the first place. Tomoharu Saito, Grand Prix Kobe, 2001. Saito found himself in the middle of a losing game, and instead of trying to play his way out of it, went for the ultimate Hail Mary. He asked his opponent to cut his deck. Now I know my accent makes that sound like some kind of Pain Olympics type beat, but cutting a deck of cards simply involves picking an arbitrary point within the deck to pick up a fraction of the deck and place it on top. In tournament play, your opponent is meant to do this every time your deck is shuffled, to ensure that the people capable of actual magic can't use some advanced card engineering to guarantee that all their best cards float to the top of their deck. Saito, seemingly for no reason, offered his opponent to cut his deck out of the blue, and his opponent, bewildered by this request, did it regardless, only for Saito to call over a judge and say that his opponent was trying to tamper with his deck. Of course, this was one of the stupidest ways to try and pin an illegal move on your opponent, and Saito was quickly caught out, before being disqualified and hit with an 18-month ban. Mark Justice, Grand Prix Atlanta, 1997. Mark was part of a draft where he pulled 3 muscle slivers from packs, but he wanted 4. When it came time to write down the deck list, he wrote that he had drafted 4, and during the downtime before the first match, went over to one of the card vendors and purchased a 4th muscle sliver. And he would have got away with it too, if it weren't for those meddling printer inconsistencies. You see, the card he had purchased from the vendor was from a different print run to the 3 he had drafted, and the colouring was noticeably different. After spotting this, the judges went full CSI. Once it was discovered he had purchased the card, he said it was because one of the ones he pulled from the packs was defective and he had already thrown it out. When asked which trash can he had thrown it into, he had a convenient lapse in his memory, and so the judges gave him an ultimatum. You help us search all 4 trash cans in the building, and if we find the muscle sliver you threw away, you can stay. Otherwise, you're exiled. Mark, unwilling to spend an afternoon trawling through trash for a card he knew didn't exist, declined this offer and was promptly disqualified. Finally, Trey Van Cleve, Grand Prix Boston, 2003. In addition to some unsportsmanlike behaviour and shady plays, Trey found himself with a 2-year suspension, all thanks to the official event photographer in the picture humorously titled Van Cleve Covets Zeeves YMG shirt. It's clear that the only thing Van Cleve covets is a fat fucking W, as he can be seen clearly peeking at the cards another player is drafting. Have you ever been done by a technicality? A rule that, while you understand the intent behind it, it seems frankly ludicrous given the context. I'm sure Bradley Carpenter felt this way when he lost a match in the semi-finals of the Star City Games Charlotte Open Tournament, simply because he didn't say a card's full name. Because the deck lists were posted before the game, Bradley knew that his opponent, Bob Huang, had a 12-gold shot card called Orberigmos Enraged that Carpenter definitely didn't want to look down the receiving end of. Thankfully, Carpenter had a card up his sleeve, or rather in his deck, because a card up his sleeve would be in clear violation of 108.5. This card was Pithing Needle,
a card that allows you to pick a card, any card, and that card is essentially unable to activate its abilities. When Carpenter played, we named Silverdrag-N as the target, not Silverdrag-N Enraged, assuming Juan would know what he meant. This probably wouldn't have been a problem if there wasn't also a card named just Silverdrag-N. Now, Silverdrag-N is a useless card that would never see any real tournament play, unlike the version of him that checks Twitter daily, Silverdrag-N Enraged. And even though Huang didn't have any of the unenraged version in his deck, Piffin even doesn't care. Carpenter named a real card, so that card is now its target. When Huang finally flopped out his meaty Silverdrag-N Enraged onto the table, Carpenter's pitiful piffing prick could do nothing to stop it, and he ultimately lost the game. While most people sided with him, he did later regret abusing his easy caliber to win the game. I asked the judges away from the table to verify that he had named the Guild Pact version. They said he did, and I came back unsure of what to do. Ultimately, I gave in to my desire to win, but in retrospect, I think that while winning is important to me, it was not worth doing in a questionable way. Despite Carpenter's loss, the players had chosen to split their earnings beforehand, so neither one had been lost out financially. Furthermore, the official rules of Magic were updated, so that should there be any confusion about which particular card the player is naming, they must seek further clarification so that both players know exactly which card they mean. Carpenter might have taken an L on a technicality, but what about
Giving my shields a recharge.
Now, with a title like that, I'm sure your first thoughts are something along the lines of match fixing or illegal betting, but I assure you the reality is much sillier. One of the most popular Magic formats is Draft, where a group of players all crack open a number of packs, take one card, pass the rest to the next player, do the hokey pokey and turn it all around, and continue in this fashion until they have enough cards that will hopefully create a solid deck. The setting? Las Vegas 2015 Pro Tournament. The player? Has to be Maynard. My pants? Shit. Maynard was doing pretty well for himself so far, and landed a spot in the top 8 players of the tournament. These 8 players sat down for the final draft of the tournament, with the winner receiving an invitation to the Magic World Championship, which is essentially the Super Bowl for people who don't know what the Super Bowl is. It's during this draft that Maynard cracks open a pack containing a foil Tarmogoyf. At the time, this beefcake of a card was easily selling for a couple $100 for a single non-foil version, with this shiny coating only adding even more value to an already rare card. In addition to this, drafted cards at tournaments are stamped by the organisers so that players can't Alex Bertoncini a couple cards up their sleeves and slot them in the deck. This meant that this already incredibly rare shiny Tarmogoyf is now literally one of a kind, and Maynard found himself with a dilemma on his hands. While there's no rules against using cards for value alone, it's generally frowned upon in the community to nab really expensive cards in the draft if they don't fit the deck you're trying to build. Unfortunately for Maynard, another card in this pack would have worked far better with the cards he'd chosen thus far, meaning everyone watching along at home would know that money was the only reason he might choose the Tarmogoyf. He chose the Tarmogoyf. This spawned a mass debate amongst Magic fans and professionals, with many casual players in favour of Maynard copping some extra cardboard cash, while some felt that this actively cheapened the game. Others still argued that if Wizards of the Coast had provided their professionals better monetary support, they wouldn't be so inclined to yoink the pricey cards. Either way, the deed was done. And while Maynard didn't end up winning the tournament, he did announce that he would be donating 75% of the card's proceeds to charity. In addition to its uniqueness as a tournament-stamped foil Tarmogoyf, the infamy surrounding it only further drove up the price, and in the end, it sold for just over $2,000 via private auction. After more mini-scandals, you can choose between one of our 90s Pokemon cards, or how about one on World of Warcraft scandals. There were so many Magic stories, I couldn't get to this video. What ones would you like to see in a part 2? No, Sid was... well... Others complained that he took these images without consent, which, while you can't recognise anyone in the images unless you're overly familiar with a certain someone's anal crevasse, it could still be a source of embarrassment for the men in the pictures. According to Sid, a few of them actually did reach out to him, and all of them found it funny. But of course, that doesn't account for everyone. After the images of Maker released, Sid said he received an email from the DCI, the organisation that used to run officially sanctioned magic tournaments, asking for his side of the story. He responded by saying that his aim was never to bully anyone, but unfortunately for Sid, this wasn't good enough. The DCI cracked down on him, and Sid received an 18-month ban from competitive Magic, which, for comparison, is the same length as the original ban for notorious cheater Alex Bertoncini, who we covered in the previous video. Like the engorged glutes of Sid's photobombings, the Magic community was cracked down the middle. Some players found the images hilarious, and felt the length of the ban was excessive, especially when compared to people actively ruining the game, such as Alex, while other players felt deserved the ban, but that it should be extended to a lifetime one. Some believe that this excessive length for a first-time offender may have been done to make an example out of him, but Sid felt that the lack of any major official announcement rebukes this theory. Regardless of the community's complaints, what's done was done, and Sid took the ban on the crack. The ban only stopped him from competing in Magic events, not attending, which ironically did nothing to stop him from pulling the same stunt again. But his future tournament attendances were notably lacking in any posterior pictograms. In a reply to a Hobby Drama post about him from 2022, he notes that he probably wouldn't have done it again due to the damage it did to the already fragile image us nerds have. Still, despite the mixed reception, the ban, and even the death threats he received, it sounds like it was overall a positive experience. I bet I'll eventually want to write a book about the unique life that post has given me. I met countless individuals from coast to coast and taken selfies, had conversations, shared meals, shared celebrations, shared beds. Overall, put me in a ton of unreal positions that I've been truly gifted to have experienced.
Yeah.
As someone with an arts degree, I can safely say there are better ways to spend your money. Also, that artist is not as fucked up as anyone else, just in a more forward-facing eyeballs and ear tunes. Still, artists are an integral part of the MTG experience, transforming maths into magic with nothing but pretty pictures and italicized words. With so many artists, writers, and other creative folk on your payroll, it's only so long before one of them slips and draws clan members on a card and... Oh, that only took a year to happen. Here's a few short stories of some of the silly things that artists employed by Wizards have done. Just give my shields every time. As mentioned, back in 1994, 1 year into Magic's life, a card was illustrated with characters wearing outfits resembling those worn by the Ku Klux Klan. Given the simplistic art style used, this could perhaps be excused as a weird helmet if it wasn't both prejudice. The card has the effect that if your opponent tries to play a creature whose mana color is different than that of the creatures you have in play, they cost double. To make matters even worse, the card's official internal database ID was accidentally assigned the number 1488, a code word of sorts used by white supremacists. That's just complex enough that it manages to
No.
the neurons at once. The card's artist, Harold Martinell, has also been accused of playing Invoke Prejudice in real life, if you get my drift. But browsing his public Facebook page made me realize he's guilty of an arguably worse crime: self-quoting. Amidst the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, Wizards put out a statement that they would be removing a series of cards from their database that were racially or culturally offensive, including Invoke Prejudice, and that these cards were also banned from all sanctioned tournament play. The only thing that could have made Invoke Prejudice worse would be if it was a white card. Although, if any player was going to be racist, it would be mono blue. Alright, let's move from 1994 to something a bit more recent. The art on Magic cards is of a very high caliber, with many artists busting ass on their portfolio to even be considered by the wizards who live on the coast. So when artist Kit LaPena finally saw her work on a card in the Mystical Archive series from Strixhaven, she would have been elated if it was her that submitted the work. Alerted by a comment on her DeviantArt page, Kit was surprised to see that fellow artist and longtime Wizards collaborator Jason Felix had copied her 2016 Nicol Bolas fan art almost wholesale, only rotating the arm and partially altering the torso. He even retained her era of giving Bolas 5 fingers instead of 3. Furthermore, the artwork of Ugin is just a flipped version of the iconic Ugin the Spirit Dragon card, illustrated by Raymond Swanland. In isolation, this might have been considered a homage, but when placed next to the other stolen dragon, it seems that Jason was quite keen to nip off for lunch early that day. This was confirmed in a statement he put out on Twitter, where he says that he was overworked, but notes that isn't an excuse, as well as saying he will be sending compensation to Kit and Raymond. Wizards played their own short statement at instant speed, saying they will be suspending work with Jason until they have been able to bring this matter to successful conclusion, whatever that means. It appears that they... No, Sid was... well, you know. Others complained that he took these images without consent, which, while you can't recognize anyone in the images amidst the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, Hunter from September, 6 months after Wizard's statement. Writing is one of the many forms of art, or at least I tell myself that while I'm trying to come up with a new way to write penis. Today I'm feeling the chokeable chipolata. Magic's writing staff aren't immune to scandals either, as we found out in 2019's War of the Spark Forsaken novel, when Wizards of the Coast and author Greg Weisman took 2 of their female characters that were all but confirmed queer and retconned them so hard that some of the people reading the books probably had their own orientation changed. For years, the Red Planeswalker Chandra Ninnolaam and Green Planeswalker Nissa Ravine were heavily implied to be interested in shuffling each other's decks through the various short stories and novelization put out by Wizards of the Coast. The fiery passion of the Red Planeswalker contrasted by the reserved calm of the Green Planeswalker was an interesting concept, romantically and lore-wise, and fans of the couple started to get some proper payoff during the War of the Spark series of novels. The pair confessed their love for one another in War of the Spark, and fans were assured that they would find out if the couple were in a relationship if they read the next book. Fans who read the next book were instead treated to the line, Chandra had really been into girls. Her friends, and she'd had her fair share, were mostly the brawny and decidedly male types of kids, hitting the portion of the audience that was excited for their romance, with the revelation that not only was Chandra never into girls, she was into the manliest of men. It seems like it was going out of its way to piss off the community that was rooting for the couple. They even went so far as to retcon the admission of love from the previous book, stating that both of them knew deep down they were only speaking platonically, even though that book was also written by Weisman. Many fans in the Magic community were upset at the erasure of the only queer female representation in the series, with some suspicious that the sudden, violent U-turn in their relationship was due to malicious movement from on high, possibly due to the announcement of a Magic the Gathering Netflix series that stars Chandra in a leading role. Both Wizards of the Coast and the book's author Greg Weisman put out statements apologising for the way they handled the couple involved, which interestingly lends credence to the theory that corporate meddling may have shifted the direction of the characters' relationships. In his statement, Greg writes, I believe that if readers had seen my original ideas for the chapter in question, they might have gotten a better sense of what I was trying to accomplish. They might have liked it better. In any case, through the mutual creative/editorial process with Wizards of the Coast and Del Rey, we ended up with the final product that was published in Forsaken, which clearly didn't meet anyone's expectations or delivers on our intentions, and for that, I'm truly sorry. Outside of the sloppy handling of the girlfriends, the book, which was the finale in the Gatewatch storyline that had spanned several years and multiple sets, was poorly written and badly unfortunately require work. And so War of the Spark Forsaken now forever sits as the stale full stop to one of Magic's most iconic story arcs. As we saw in my Yu-Gi-Oh video, it doesn't take much to set off cardboard collecting cretins, and it only makes sense that Magic the Gathering would have a player riot of its very own, predating Yu-Gi-Oh's by a whole 2 years, triggered by the only tournament final to be decided by disqualification. The year is 1997, and Magic the Slytherin is in its 5th year of existence. At the end of February, 236 players were summoned to the battlefield of Los Angeles to compete in a draft division expansion for a whopping $150,000 prize pool. Our protagonist is American David Mills, a talented player who managed to climb the ladder all the way to the finals. Him and his opponent, Finnish player Tommy Hogan, will be playing for the first place prize of $26,000. And he would have had a solid chance at it. He didn't have a little work. You see, everyone wants to play the game differently. And if the majority of your games are casual ones that skew the uptight tournament rules in favour of streamlining things, you might pick up a few bad habits that can become difficult to shake when you've got an official judge breathing down your neck and licking your ears for sustenance. Mills had a bad habit of playing his cards before tapping his lands to pay for them, which was a relatively minor issue, but still one that violated the game's rules at the time. Since it appeared that he wasn't doing this for any malicious reason or out of habit, the judge's was initially lenient on him, but still told him to cut it out. Unfortunately for Mills, his thought sponge just wasn't wired that way, and altering a playstyle you'd built up over countless games would be like being told at age 28 that you're not meant to piss with both hands gripped on the top. Time and time again, he repeated his fiendish faux pas, with the judge's sympathy turning to annoyance and eventually to a threat. If you make that mistake one more time, you'll be disqualified from the tournament. Mills initially bagged 2 games in the best of 5 final against Tommy Hogan. With only 1 game left to seal the deal, Hotel started and enough quarter of a beta black Lotus was almost in his reach, possibly viewing the judge's threat as an empty one. Perhaps proof that even first place isn't enough motivation to shake old habits. Mills, unfortunately, let his quirk slip one last time, dropping the card he'd hoped to play. The judge, not one to make hollow threats, informed Mills that he was disqualified without payment, meaning he wouldn't even be eligible for the $16,000 second place payout, and making Tommy Hogan the winner of Pro Tour LA 1997. When it came time for the award ceremony, all one quiet portion of hell broke loose, where they send people who don't subscribe to YouTube channels that they like. A group of the pros who were in attendance stormed the stage and refused to leave until Mills was allowed to finish his match, noting that the rule he was disqualified for was a trivial one and hardly worth stripping his prize money and potential victory over. Funnily enough, one of the men rallying for justice was none other than Mark Justice, the now infamous player whose own disqualification is covered in the previous video. According to Mark Rosewater, it took a very eloquent speech by tournament manager Andrew Fish to calm everyone. White wasn't successful in altering the outcome of the tournament or the disqualification. They were successful in reinstating David's prize money, allowing him to walk away with $16,000 for his troubles. Some fans felt that Tommy Hovey only managed to win the tournament due to David's disqualification, but he proved them wrong the following year by coming first place in Pro Tour Row, becoming the first player to ever win 2 Pro Tours. Contemporary Magic players might have found the rule regarding tapping lands before playing cards to be a weird one, and that's because this rule no longer exists today, and you most likely have David Mills to thank. Alright, I'm going to tap 1 mountain to cast Lightning Bolt on your mini kudos. After more mini scandals, why not choose between the original Magic the Gathering video or see how the other half works in my Yu-Gi-Oh video?
What's up, everybody? This is the Axe Man here. Looking at the worst enemy hotcakes out there in cyberspace. I've covered quite a few of these hotcakes in the past. You all remember the infamous extra credits video.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden...
Anything from the world of video games. EA did nothing wrong. Man, there's a lot of bad takes out there. Why can't everyone just have better opinions like me? I've never had a hot take. Okay. But I figured instead of just focusing on one, we could open the door to the crap factory. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna pick it all. But before we jump into it, this video is sponsored by Display. Display offers a ton of different metal-made posters for you to express your passion, ranging from anime, retro, movies and TV shows. And they come in 3 different sizes. This one I chose. So there's Siegmeyer. How quaint. Hello, Zuko here. And it's real simple to mount it on your wall. Simply peel off this leaflet, stick it on your wall to prevent damage, slap on the magnets, hold for 5 seconds, and there you go. Display has a summer sale going on right now. Buy 1 or 2 posters at 24% off, 3 to 4, 32% off, buy more than 5, get a 37% discount. And if you use the link in the description, it'll automatically apply the discount to any purchase. So go check it out. Get yourself some new wall decor and display yourself. Display by watching this video. Now, back to the hot take. After the Black Ops Cold War trailer, man, was that divisive. And now, neo-Nazis, alt-righters, MAGAs are having a field day because Stop Selling Video Game just put out an anti-communist, borderline fascist red pill for millions of people. And apparently it's pushing a far-right conspiracy, which, if you're excited for Black Ops Cold War, you're probably a fascist. Let's talk about something common like video games are a waste of time. And even Joe Rogan got some flack for this time.
There's no problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun. And you don't, yeah, well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them, and they're real exciting, and you don't get them.
But the bottom of the barrel, absolute worst version of this. Video games are the absolute worst music habit you could have. Video games make you subhuman. You think you're restoring your humanity in Dark Souls? Pfft, nah, you're losing it. I will say though, Detroit Become Subhuman was one of my favorite games of the last few years. You dishonor your ancestors by playing video games. I don't think my great-grandfather gives a shit what I do. What's next? People are gonna say video games make you violent or racist or sexist?
I'm hearing more and more people say the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts.
Isn't it weird how this criticism isn't often leveled at other leisure activities? Like people just like to pick on video games for whatever reason. Like, oh, here's this medium that I don't understand.
I wrote a blog post a while ago about why I f***ing hate video games, because this is what it does. It appeals to like the male fantasy.
Really, I think it's the type of person that is obsessed with, like, if you're not working out, eating, sleeping, or making money in some way, you're wasting your time. Oh, what's that? You've got 2 kids, a beautiful wife or husband, a nice home, and you like to play Mario Kart with your kids every now and then? Well, guess what? You're a failure, you freaking subhuman. You have to wonder why people take to the internet to just video games. I hate them so much, gamers. A lot of news channels, especially Fox, have come out with some pretty hilarious crap in the past.
It's a new role-playing video game that is leaving nothing to the imagination. Mass Effect is what it's called. In some parts of this, you'll see full digital nudity. Imagine. And the ability for the players to engage in graphic sex, and the person who's playing the game gets to decide exactly what's going to happen between the 2 people, if you know what I mean.
No. We know that all the research shows that violence has a desensitizing effect. Well, sexuality does too.
It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up.
They don't show women as being valued for anything other than their sexuality.
You're a liar! You're a liar!
And it's a man in this game deciding how many women he wants to be with.
All right, let's get Jeff in on this.
All right, that's
go ahead,
completely
Jeff.
incorrect.
You like how the dude on here is just like, that's incorrect? Brilliant idea for a news segment. Let's get one person who isn't familiar with the actual subject and another who is, and just let them go at it. Was their goal to make this lady look stupid?
Yeah, it's completely incorrect. First of all, you can actually play as a man or a woman in the game. Cooper, have you ever played Mass Effect?
No. No. No.
You dumb bitch.
You're coming to this news program with incorrect information. You've just done even the slightest bit of research. You would have known that. Ooh, here's a spicy one. Playing BioShock Infinite in the age of Trump is unsettling, but not for the obvious reasons. Come on, dog. America isn't perfect, but are you really suggesting that modern-day America is at all similar to Colombia? We don't have any flying cities. My husband and I bought our PS4 to escape 2017, but then the game I chose to play was BioShock Infinite in the first year of Donald Trump's America.
That's no escape at all.
So go play something else? Problem solved, no article necessary? But in trying to find my way through this gorgeously wrought fantasy land, I learned two things very quickly that made it hard to forget the real world. One of the common threads in these hot takes is like people writing articles and being unable to separate themselves from reality. Like that's the point of a game or like a movie or TV show, is just to enjoy something. As preposterous as a concept as that sounds, like they can't just enjoy a game for what it is. They have to make it about themselves and like inject their own beliefs and like whatever they're going through into what they're playing. This article is written like the lady turned on BioShock Infinite and it was like the intro of Gex where you just get sucked into the TV. It's like, oh no, I can't escape.
Nah.
I can't escape 2017. Play a different game. BioShock Infinite made it possible for me to experience not just what it's like to be a straight white man, but what it's like to be Donald Trump.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Get 7
Everyone
kills
in
with
this
any
room
shotgun
is now
multiplayer.
dumber for having listened to it.
That was the big takeaway. This game really makes you feel like Donald Trump. 9 out of 10 has a little something for everyone, too much air. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's Persona 5 DLC includes a disability slur. My apologies to anyone offended by the following passage. I need to read it just so you get the full effect. So this is what they thought the song said. Oh, hi, are you ready? Ready to pick up the pieces. Let's go. Let's play. Retarded. Because that's a phrase people use. Hey son, you ready to go to the basketball game? Yes, Dad, let's go. Let's play retarded. I actually feel bad for the singer because apparently English isn't her first language. Pretty sure this article was slander, actually. Hot take requirement number 7, lack of research. During the height of the Battlefront 2 loot box controversy, EA's community manager showed off his incredible people skills when he called us all armchair developers. What makes this a hot take, you ask? It's the gatekeeping. It's the implication that unless you develop video games, you have no place to criticize them. Here's your food, sir. Oh, the steak is burnt. Goddamn armchair chefs telling me how to do my job.
You vicious, heartless bastards!
Upon reading this next hot take, I thought I misplaced my steaming pile of dog shit, but actually I just ended up on Salon. Brace yourselves. The Legend of Zelda is classist, sexist, and racist. The unholy Triforce. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I do agree with Anita Sarkeesian on one thing, and that is, remember that it's both possible and even necessary to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects. Now that's all fine and dandy if you want to write about social issues, but is basing it on Ocarina of Time really the best way to do that? Ocarina portrays the apprentices or journeymen as lazy and shiftless, and the boss as the only one willing to work. By focusing on the greed of individuals, the game ignores how private property incentivizes such behavior. With this moralizing focus on the belief that society's
Asami. Yeah.
humanity's flawed nature. How in God's name are you drawing this conclusion from Ocarina of Time? Karl Marx described this relationship as one of oppressor and oppressed. Legend of Zelda, ditch that title, man. Should have called it Karl Marx and the Ocarina of Communism. From the perspective of domesticated animals and the culture of the prospect of the modern factory farm system, but for non-humans, the pre-industrial farm, as symbolized by Lon Lon Ranch, was still a place of exploitation and violence. What kind of person gets to Lon Lon Ranch and is like, you know, animal rights really are important? This is like pseudo-intellectualism at its most obvious. You can write an article with fancy language, integrating all these political aspects, and even if there is some point to be gained from this turd, the premise is so ridiculous, you can't take it seriously. In what world do you think the creators of Ocarina of Time were thinking about Karl Marx, racism, sexism, and class issues? Where did you get this from?
If a person consistently reads and advocates the views expressed in a communist publication, he may be a communist.
The Legend of Zelda franchise seems to attract a lot of these hot takes. It's actually impressive how deep the rabbit hole goes. There never really was a Dark Link. Link and the Zelda series are just racist.
Well, excuse me.
Link's not a black version of Link, he's a shadow. He's the absence of Link's purity and light.
Excuse me, princess.
Sony's chief of development said, "This is crap," after first playing Demon's Souls. Hey Yoshida, that comment didn't age well. Sakurai added a woman to Smash with huge boobs, booty shorts, torn stockings, and heels, and somehow made nerds mad about it. Outstanding achievement, really. Oh fuck, I didn't realize Byleth was added to Smash purely for sex appeal. I'm no longer bothered that Fire Emblem is the most represented franchise in Smash Brothers, with characters that have extremely similar movesets that make them redundant to begin with. Hooray for titties! I remember on Twitter someone posted about the scene in Halo 2 where Tartarus says,
"One more word, Oracle, and I'll rip your eye from its socket." Which is nothing.
What the hell?
To what I'll do
Wait,
to
you can... What?
And my mind was just
My mind is blown!
when I saw people proclaiming that Tartarus was threatening to rape Miranda. What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you draw that conclusion? If a villain makes a generic threat and the first thing you think of is rape, something's wrong. I don't know what happened in your life, but I'm sorry. Oh man, this one really bothers me. Halo 3, one of Halo's most dire, poorly constructed, misogynistic stories, which boasts by its excellent surface-level presentation. We've been wrong for years.
5 seconds remaining.
Halo 3 was never about finishing the fight. It was about finishing the picture.
Op 4, last stop standing. The time limit has been reached.
In what dimension of insanity do you reside in, where you think a story as innocuous and awesome as Halo 3 is misogynistic, that it's actually damaging to women and their rights? By playing Halo 3, you are a misogynist, or that the creators were misogynists when they wrote the story. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? PETA's vegan guide to Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer every night.
I'm gonna eat twice the amount of animals I used to eat. Anytime PETA gets involved, you know it's going to be a cringe fest. The marketing team for this company has to be made up of just the most unlikable, friendless people on the planet. While you wait for Pokemon Sword and Shield, play PETA's parody, Pokemon Black and Blue. Gotta love the bloody outline and chained up Pikachu, the maniacal professor. This is an accurate depiction of Pokemon. I mean, if you really think about it, the concept of the games is a little messed up. You know, a bunch of young kids capturing creatures and pitting them against each other in fight clubs for money. But it's a video game, it's not real. Not a single person on the planet played Pokemon and was suddenly like, you know what? Fuck animals. But it was at it again with their Animal Crossing promotion on TikTok. They stormed the museum like angels on a battlefield and demanded
Bomb location compromised. Plan accordingly. Op 4 has located a bomb. Get ready to engage.
The The thing is, you have to donate fish and bugs to Blathers in order for him to build the museum. So members of PETA did that and then went into the museum to protest the animals that they donated to the museum.
You what?
This article has a perfect headline. PETA storms Animal Crossing to protest treatment of digital animals. If you ever think you're wasting your time when you're playing video games, you don't know what wasting time really is. Some hot takes are so outrageous, you have to assume the person is trolling. This channel I found is exclusively hot takes. Neo 2 sucks, Animal Crossing sucks, Resident Evil 3 Remake sucks, Ghost of Tsushima sucks. Every game sucks, gaming is dead, this is the worst year for gaming ever.
Undefined, aka the king of gaming, the king of YouTube, the realest gamer on the internet, the 100% fact spitter, the higher level thinker, the leader of the real gamer movement, the king of anime, the king of manga, and the one who's better than you in every way.
This dude has more titles than Daenerys Targaryen.
Even though most of you on this channel simply do not deserve it. Shout out to the people who donated to keep this channel alive. I was ready to walk away from YouTube. I had my bags packed, ready to never return, never upload again. I had made a video saying if I did not receive any donations, I was done.
I like the whole insult my fan base while e-begging angle. I'm barely putting any time whatsoever into making this content, and I'm not getting what I deserve. Ah, it's not my horrible attitude, lack of talent, or shallow character that's
One
to blame.
friendly remaining.
It's my audience, of course.
I was just tired of putting out these amazing high quality videos that you can't find anywhere else.
Where else are you gonna watch 15 minutes of a static background with no gameplay or editing? I'm honestly not sure if this channel is satire or not.
How can you consider yourself a gamer, a person of intelligence, if you play shooters? Shooters, again, cater to the lowest of the low type of people. Doom has been garbage since its creation. I remember playing the old school Doom games and thinking, oh, so this is what being a loser feels like. This is what, being a low-level thinker feels like, because only losers will be playing a game like this.
By the way, this Doom Eternal video was posted 8 days before the game came out. Just something to think about. Unbiased Katie is one of the best trolls, and even I was fooled by this. You shouldn't be playing video games. The chemical that your brain produces when you play video games is the same chemical that your brain produces when you commit murder. I fell for this. I thought this was real, but then you go to some of her other posts. This is clear satire. Men should not be allowed to play sports or participate in any activity that involves exercise. Oh man, this one actually just recently happened. Apparently people are boycotting 343 for removing a police nameplate in MCC. I know that police brutality is a sensitive subject.
Changing mag.
But that's kind of ridiculous to protest over. I also think it's stupid to remove imagery of police officers as if the concept of law enforcement is inherently offensive. Is anybody complaining about this in oblivion? I don't think so.
Stop right there, criminal.
Bomb location compromised. Plan accordingly.
Around inclusivity and representation in video games. People are pissed when a white guy is the protagonist of a new Star Wars game. Black guy is on the cover of a Battlefield game. Where does it end? You can't win.
5 seconds
Both
counting.
takes equally dumb. I just think it's incredibly
Bomb
unhealthy
located
to
by Op
obsess
4.
over skin color or demographics in a video game to the point where you just completely dismiss it. Like, oh, this character doesn't look, sound, and talk exactly like me. It's not worth playing. That's such a closed-minded perspective. Obviously, we should celebrate diversity and include more unique perspectives, but it has to be done in a thoughtful way. Otherwise, it's just tokenism, Strong female protagonist. And no single piece of media is ever going to represent every person for every country and every background. Media is not a checklist, nor should any reasonable person expect it to. Rarely is the casting, race, and gender of characters an issue in storytelling, and never have I seen it be an issue in game mechanics. You want diversity of skin color or diversity of thought. Again, I'll refer back to that Witcher 3 race controversy. You have a video game, an extremely popular video game, from a perspective hardly ever seen in video games aside from World War II games. Poland. But, uh-oh, too many white people. How problematic. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to create this paradigm, this American paradigm, and apply it to like every type of media from every country in person, as if like representation is that simple. There is no unified standard. Game is set in Africa? Oh no, it has black zombies. Racism. Game is set in New Orleans? Also has black zombies? Oh no, racism. It's like, what next? Are we gonna complain that Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has too many Japanese people in it? Some should strive to be inclusive and others don't really need to be. Dragon Age, Mass Effect, KOTOR are awesome because they give characters choices. You can choose who you romance, what you look like, male or female. Cyberpunk 2077 seems to be going down that road too. So let's celebrate what they've done, rather than try to take what they've done and apply it to everything else. I guess the big takeaway is don't let people make you feel bad for enjoying video games. Take care of your responsibilities. Try not to take everything so seriously.
Your location has been compromised.
And there is room for in-depth political discussions about video games. Analysis type articles and videos are nothing more than rage bait, where the writer has to literally force concepts into a game where they don't belong and try to analyze why this is problematic because of it. So those are some of the worst gaming hot takes I could find. Like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the Act Man
One
for
friendly
more
operator
awesome
remaining.
content. Alright everyone,
Down to
that's all I
15
got
seconds.
for today. This is the Act Man signing out.
Robot planting, bro. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Popular
What
new
you doing?
game actually allows you to
5
be
seconds to
a
go.
terrorist and kill people.
I've been playing video games ever since I was 3 years old.
EDD, baby!
Boy Color and Pokemon
EDD.
Blue in place of a babysitter. As I grew up, there was so much to love about gaming. I got to play and experience countless amazing titles and witness the industry as it grew and evolved. After playing something like Oblivion or BioShock, Halo 3, I would just kind of sit there and wonder, what's next? However, in the last 9 or so years, it feels like in many ways, the quality of video games and especially AAA titles has declined. The industry is always creating something new, innovative, and epic. Gaming as a medium has evolved very quickly in the 35 or so years it's been around. And while there are so many great aspects to love about this hobby, just consider this a more pessimistic take on the state of gaming. So what is it that has caused the decline of gaming? No, it's not these old Flash cartoons, but they did inspire the name. It's the same thing that ruins so much of this beautiful world of ours. Insatiable greed.
Implement microtransactions into Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Just to clarify, these are my opinions, based on the facts that I've researched and
Your
observed.
drone has found
If
a
I
bomb.
get something wrong, please feel free to let me know, which I'm sure you all will. For every negative thing that has happened to video games, you could argue an equally positive benefit has occurred, and that's a fair point. Greed is the driving force of this decline. But it gets tricky, because greed, in this case, takes on several forms. No, it's not an overweight Italian
5
man with a ridiculous mustache. It's something both subtle and straightforward. Let's not
Proceed to
waste any
bomb
more time on a
location and
pleasant
defuse it.
intro. Let's jump straight into this. Perceiving the decline. Is it in our heads? It's challenging and overwhelming to tackle the core issues that plague a multi-billion-dollar industry. With so many different companies, developers, publishers, programmers spread all over the world, is it possible to categorize and identify this decline? All we need to do is follow the money. So let me just list some things you probably noticed and we'll elaborate on them down the line. 1. An increase in buggy, glitchy games. Big budget releases often have a botched launch and are forced to rely on updates to fix their issues. Number 2. An overabundance of remakes, remasters, sequels. Number 3. Corporatization of gaming. The conduct of major companies, publishers, and developers. And of course, number 4. An obvious influx of RNG loot boxes being forced into every genre of game, and increasingly aggressive monetization schemes. It could be that our own minds play a factor in this as well. Possibly we see the game industry as being worse because we had it so good in the past. Is all the disappointment we have caused simply by us growing older and more jaded? It's entirely possible the negativity we associate with modern gaming is outweighing the more positive innovations that have been made. Games look better, the stories more epic, characters are represented so realistically, animation vastly improved. My point is, try not to become too overwhelmed with nostalgia for the glory days. And remember that your perception plays a huge part in this decline. What do and don't you have a problem with? That's for you to figure out. But now that we got a solid base for this topic, let's dive deep into the decline of gaming. Complacency. Pleased, especially with oneself or one's
this is nice.
Advantages, situations, often without some potential danger or defect. Self-satisfied. Complacency.
There are no trap setters. Fine and dandy. If there are,
the perfect example is Valve.
I was thinking I'll buy RAM, but I'll buy this guy. I can play trap setter as an attacker.
Once known for their unconventional methods of game design and their repertoire of releases, so many instant classics that to this day are viewed as some of the greatest games of all time. But what about since then?
Looks like there's been a change of plans.
Well, Valve has not made a new game since Portal 2, 8 years ago. And the last time they even launched a new IP was Left 4 Dead. That was 11 years ago. Well, let's take a quick look at the games they've launched since then. CSGO, a remake of Counter-Strike Source, which was a remake of the original Counter-Strike. Dota 2, a remake of the Dota mod for Warcraft 3. Counter-Strike Online 2, Koreans only. Counter-Strike Nexon Zombies, free-to-play zombie shooter, no thanks. Left 4 Dead Survivors, Japanese only. The Lab, a series of 8 VR minigames that was more or less just an experiment. Dota Underlords, a mobile version of Dota Auto Chess. Do I need to elaborate? This is the same company that made Half-Life 2, and yet Valve is just content with developing these unremarkable titles? You can really sum up the disappointment gamers have had with this company in the Artifact reveal. Everyone was so hyped to see what Valve was working on. It had been so many years since they came out with a new kick-ass game, and when they revealed it, everyone lost all interest. A Dota 2 card game. Now the question is, why did Valve stop making actual games? What happened to their ambition? Well, as of March 2015, Valve makes $18 million per month off Dota 2 alone. Valve is also, by ratio, one of the most profitable companies with the fewest employees in America, earning roughly $300,000 per employee. They make 30% of every sale off Steam. They're just rolling in the moolah right now. The chimichangas, the gold bars. If you're making tons of money selling the same thing for 7 years and you're a businessman, well, why would you stop? Why would you take the risk and time to develop and sell a brand new product when you can simply maintain your current products and watch the profits get dumped straight into your bank account? Oh hey Bethesda, how's it going, buddy? Didn't see you there. You still selling Skyrim? There's no question that Valve fans will eat up whatever new game they put out, provided it's the type of game people want. As a consumer, you'd buy Portal 3, you'd buy Left 4 Dead 3, and you'd most certainly buy Half-Life 3. Long awaited and pretty much dead, Half-Life 3 is a perfect example of complacency.
I got nothing to say about Half-Life.
Despite the critical acclaim and unrelenting hype for this title, you'd think Half-Life 3 would be at the top of Valve's priority list, but it never was. Instead, we're getting a VR game, and while it's cool they're finally making another Half-Life, all I can think is, what about the games that people want? You see, Valve and even some other companies need to take lessons from Bono. Don't ever stop trying to be in the limelight. Keep pushing forward. Infinity and beyond. Bethesda and Rockstar are another two clear-cut examples of how complacency has creeped into the video game industry. Now undisputed masters of reselling the same product in as many forms possible. After Grand Theft Auto 5, Rockstar basically did nothing except update the game and port their old games to different platforms. Until 5 years later, they released Red Dead Redemption 2. Now again, I'm not saying these are bad games, but if you look back at the 5 years from 2001 to 2006, they were putting out highs like GTA 3, Vice City, Midnight Club 2, Manhunt, Red Dead Revolver, The Warriors. Rockstar used to experiment trying new things, developing several IPs at a time and building a library of games.
I get the kill.
Now they've gotten complacent. Bethesda, meanwhile, had a 5-year wait between Oblivion and Skyrim. That felt like forever, but oh my god, it was worth it. Skyrim was amazing. It flew off the shelves like crazy. All my friends were playing it, and now it's been 8 years since Skyrim, and we basically have no news, gameplay, or anything regarding Elder Scrolls 6. After New Vegas, it took Bethesda 5 years to come out with Fallout 4, a product that was amongst the Fallout fan base, and then 76 releases. Do you see this decline? It's this complacency, this lack of desire to innovate and create new things.
Let's go.
Releasing new games far more infrequently. And when they do, it's either something you don't care about, or it's just another sequel. Despite nearly every single game company falling prey to complacency, almost none of this applies to Nintendo, who have stuck to their roots and continue to evolve and release new games that blow us away. Nintendo is still doing things the old-fashioned way and making a shit ton of money, while these other game companies are doing things the easy way. Because if it's broken but makes a shitload of money, why fix it? The abundance of remakes and remasters. It's a fact that gaming has followed certain trends throughout the years. You had arcades where you paid quarters for entertainment. In the NES days, it was all about side-scrolling platformers. The SNES and Sega Genesis were all about graphics. Eventually, we had online gaming, rhythm games, battle royale. So many trends have come and gone. Some have stayed, but occasionally a certain style of game is perceived as no longer profitable or appealing to the mainstream. 3D platformers, for instance, have long fallen out of favor outside of Mario. In this case, instead of developing a brand new game in a genre that's considered dead, companies will choose to remaster or remake their old ones. And would you look at that, they become hella popular. Who would have thought? Spyro Reignited and Insane Trilogy were incredible remasters. And since those were so successful, don't you think people would be even more happy to see a brand new game starring the Purple Dragon or Lovable Bandicoot? But there's been no such announcement, aside from a remaster of Crash Team Racing. You can do pretty incredible things with a remake. Sometimes it turns an outdated game into something completely new, effectively remaking it to be as good as you thought it was back then. Remakes are a great way for new gamers to experience the magic of the past, without the daunting task of playing something that looks like this. Or it can be a method for the developers to add onto their old project and give it some new bells and whistles. A remaster is capable of bringing old games up to speed with several quality-of-life changes and making it the definitive way to experience an old title. It can be pretty awesome when they port something to a newer console so that you don't have to buy an old expensive copy of it, like Symphony of the Night and other Castlevania games being ported to Xbox.
Protect the bombs.
The problem arises when companies become more content to resell you their old games than they are to make new ones. It's become a meme. How many different versions of Skyrim Bethesda have churned out? Legendary Edition, Skyrim Special Edition, Remastered, Skyrim on Switch, Skyrim now with mods, Skyrim for VR. In April 2013, Bethesda announced via their blog that they were moving on from Skyrim and preparing to work on other projects. Yeah, that's a fucking laugh. Skyrim Pinball Edition. At moments, some remasters just bank off your nostalgia and try to parade their old game as something new by slapping an HD at the end of the title. All I'm saying is, there weren't a whole lot of remakes or remasters back on the N64, PlayStation, Xbox, and that's because they were focused on creating new games. In fact, I can only think of one remaster from those consoles. Conquer Live and Reloaded. It's made the game look so freaking sexy. The visuals are still impressive to this day, and they even launched a brand new multiplayer mode that was just awesome. But nowadays, some remasters are just a shameless cash grab, where you can see a side-by-side comparison and notice no difference. But hey, at least they added some extra dirt on the glass for BioShock Remastered. Take my $40. Remember the original port of Dark Souls on Steam? Yeah, it was so fucking lazy and busted, they didn't even swap out the button keys from the Xbox 360 version. I mean, holy shit. And then From Software comes out with Dark Souls Remastered, an actual real game. And they charge people $40 to play Dark Souls with a revitalized PvP community. And even DS Remastered didn't bother to fix several game-breaking glitches, highlighted in this wonderful Inferno Plus video. Companies will also take it a step further. EA turned Dungeon Keeper into a pay-to-win dumpster fire mobile game. Activision not only released Modern Warfare Remastered bundled with Infinite Warfare, but paid weapons into a game that didn't have those. Some games like Sleeping Dogs, Last of Us, come out with a remaster 1 or 2 years after release.
What? Yeah,
so far in that time span, a 1-year-old game is now considered outdated. It's nice to improve a game's stability, frame rate, and resolution, but is all that really worth buying the exact same product again? My point is, a lot of companies aren't willing to take risks anymore. It's disheartening to remember a time when the original Xbox was a haven of original, awesome, exclusive titles, and now the Xbox One doesn't even seem to be competing. This trend of lazy remasters and remakes brings me to my next point. Chasing trends. Early access. Hey guys, please excuse the shitty quality of this section. My video is still in early access. You can donate to my Patreon to help fund my willingness to sit at a computer and edit. In an effort to capitalize on whatever is most popular, plenty of game studios will just shamelessly rip off others or rush out some basic-ass shell of a game. Remember Lawbreakers? Man, didn't do so hot trying to copy Overwatch. So how about Boss Key Productions just copies Fortnite and PUBG and launch a shitty battle royale? That should bring in the money. Radical Heights, good God. Oh wow, this battle royale craze is really taken off. Let's release a brand new game that's completely fucked, abandon our old one, and alienate our fan base. The Culling 2 proved just how desperate some developers really are. Of course, it would take too much time and effort to fix PUBG before porting it to Xbox, so they just, oh my god, burn it. Burn it all. They somehow made it worse. It's kind of shocking how a company that made all the money in King Tut's castle didn't use any of it to improve the game. Instead, they just wanted more. And then Titanfall made advanced movement popular. Well, shit, of course Call of Duty and Halo has to adapt that into their games, even if the developers don't understand what makes the movement good, even if it compromises the design style and identity of their franchises. Just copy it. I don't care if it works, if it's unintuitive, janky, and sucks ass. Just copy them. Do what they're doing. A lot of these game series used to kind of just go their own way, and I miss that. The term early access has now been hijacked by companies who basically call their games completely or admit they're never going to finish. Had early access to the game, and often it was like an indie title led by a small team, which you understood didn't have the big budget some other games have and needed additional funding. But now all it means is the game is going to be a buggy mess, and you can't be mad at them because, hey, it's just in early access. Even if they make billions of dollars, Bluehole and Epic will continue to call Fortnite and PUBG early access titles. And it's got all those shitty-ass zombie survival games. My buddy brought over 7 Days to Die one time, and after playing it for 5 minutes, I was like, dude, you got fucking scammed. Did you buy this shit from Jose in the back alley behind the strip club? Like, what the fuck is this? Once esports really started to take off, developers started tailoring their games to be competitive. Everyone wanted their product to break into esports territory. That can really mess with the project's vision. When all you're worried about is chasing the most popular trends and the cash flow, you get all these half-assed games releasing. And suddenly the desire to create something new is replaced with the desire to copy others. Games as a service, updates, online only, broken launches, etc. The ability to patch a game after it's released is one of the biggest revolutions in game development, allowing teams to continue their work before going gold. Bug fixes, balance updates, and more without possible. When a game comes out and you buy it on launch day, it has an update, because the developers are still working on it after they started shipping copies. Nowadays, fix and save your ass as a developer with this luxury post-launch. Overwatch is a prime example of when it's utilized well. It needed several Without them, most people would have gotten bored of the game. The idea of constantly adding new content and features to engage players and keep them coming back is good for both the game and the company. However, as a service philosophy starts developing every stage of design. When developers rely too much on fixing the game and adding to it after launch, that we see going in decline. Halo 5 Guardians straight out the gate had like a 7-month plan of content. Why didn't you work that into the 3 years of development you had? You compare Spec Ops and Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and there's no mistake that everybody prefers those versions to the 2019 version, where it now takes Infinity Ward 1 month to get 2 missions out. 10 years ago, they launched a game with 23 of them. The difference is crystal clear in how games are developed. You look at something like KOTOR 2, Halo 2, and Smash Bros. Melee. These games all had hellish development cycles that devoured the lives of the people working on them. These heroes sacrificed time with their families just to complete the game when it was supposed to be done, so that we, the consumers, got the best product possible. Despite the many bugs, glitches, and general lack of polish in these 3 highly anticipated sequels, they turned out phenomenal because neither Obsidian, Bungie, or Nintendo could depend on simple not having that now the luxury of post-launch support. Compare the content from Halo 2 to the latest game, Guardians. At launch, Halo 5 had 4 game modes, the lowest in the series, and it took a whole year of updates to make Halo 5 a complete package. What Halo 2 accomplished in 3 years of development in 2001, Halo 5 made 15. But this is the Halo. It happens to every game series, where the gears stop turning and something as simple as launching a game in a playable state becomes an urban legend, a myth. Bad Company 2 launches perfectly and works fine.
Wall
Then
reinforced!
Battlefield 3, 4, and Battlefront 2, which all had nightmares and simply didn't work. It's so ridiculous to the point where you wonder if the games they put out are actually illegal because the product doesn't work as advertised. Then you got something like COD 2, where even the menus didn't work. You look at how Mass Effect 1 came out in 2007, pretty damn good. Mass Effect Andromeda 10 years later somehow looked worse. It was a glitch-ridden disaster. Diablo 3 absolutely masterpieces. Diablo 3 is coming out. People have been waiting over a decade to experience this game. It releases an error 37. You can't play the game until Blizzard figures their shit out. Then you had Dead Island, where the developers completely fucked up and released the wrong version of the game. How does that happen? SimCity was made to be always online, except you couldn't connect to EA's shitty-ass servers. Batman Arkham Knight out onto PC despite the publishers knowing it was a terrible port with horrific frame rate issues. I'm not saying every game from the glory days launched in a perfect state, but these unplayable disasters happen far less frequently, and at the time, I was way more forgiving of them. And then we arrive at the Master Chief Collection, which was a testament to just how broken you could release a game and somehow not be investigated by the Better Business Bureau. This atrocity was so unplayable, I'm surprised there was no class action lawsuit filed. The new cutscenes by Blur were jaw-dropping, but it's hardly any consolidation when nothing worked. Menus were fucked, game glitches everywhere, impossible to find games, ranking system constantly resetting. 343 needed like 3 or 4 years to make MCC a consistently playable game. 3 to 4 years after I bought the game, I was finally able to play it the way they promised I could.
So Halo 2 Anniversary will contain the original Halo 2 multiplayer exactly as it shipped 10 years ago.
Though this is a subjective point, take a look at these MMORPGs. World of Warcraft changed the gaming landscape as we knew it and really gave rise to the games as a service philosophy. Monthly subscriptions, new expansions. It was a nice source of cash flow, and for players that enjoyed the game, it was the greatest thing ever. WoW has been consistently supported for like 15 years, and that's great. But here's an important point hardly ever mentioned. Warcraft as a series has been an MMORPG longer than it has been a real-time strategy. Despite 3 games with multiple expansions, the reason Warcraft 4 does not exist is because WoW does. Similarly, the reason why Knights of the Old Republic 3 does not exist is because the Old Republic does. Elder Scrolls 6 does not exist yet because they've been working on Elder Scrolls Online. For better or worse, these incredible series of games have converted to the games as a service philosophy. They've turned their backs on their roots. EA is infamous for shutting down several game studios, including Visceral, who were working on a single-player Star Wars game. But because single-player games can't really be made into a service, EA saw this venture as not as profitable and shut it down. It's actually surprising when something like Jedi Fallen Order comes out with no caveats and is a genuinely great game. But in the 6 or so years EA has had the rights to Star Wars, this is the first single-player game they've put out. Flashback to the early 2000s, oh baby, Jedi Academy, Republic Commando, KOTOR 1 and 2, Episode 3 game, Lego Star Wars, Bounty Hunter, Obi-Wan, Force Unleashed, Battlefront 1 and 2, Empire at War. Star Wars games were off the fucking hook, but EA is just complacent now. We live in a time where the updates a game goes through are more impactful than the actual release. And it's this ship it now, fix it later mentality that is allowing companies to churn out so many titles that suck straight ass when they come out. A video game should never be a gamble, where the consumer doesn't know if it's gonna function or not. Corporatization, anti-consumer. Probably the worst thing about the decline of gaming is the corporatization of it. The game industry is becoming more and more controlled by some board of directors who don't see this hobby as you or I do. They aren't thinking, how can we make the best game possible? How can we make our fans happy? They're thinking, how can we make the most money with the least amount of effort? There are investigating deadlines to meet. Game development used to be just a bunch of nerds pooling their talents and creativity to make something incredible, something they would want to play. Corporatization has been sucking the life and soul out of gaming. This is illustrated by the complete lack of originality in the cover art of games. Check out this video by Nakey Jakey, it's really good. It showcases a greater point, the lack of soul. It'd be foolish to condemn all pre-order bonuses, microtransactions, DLC, etc., because only a Sith deals in absolutes. But you're the consumer. What do you want? Do you want cool, meaningful, cosmetic unlockables that showcase your accomplishments? Okay, what's the ideal way for the player to unlock them? Ask yourself this question first. Is this good for the player? Is it good for the player to unlock abilities or cosmetic items and monetized randomized loot boxes? Is that a form of progression and unlocks that is beneficial to the player? Of course not. So why do companies include it? Because the well-being of the consumer and the quality of the experience is secondary to what's most profitable. Back during the 360, PS3, and Wii generation, players noticed there was a lot more downloadable content than the previous generation. In fact, the GameCube didn't even connect to the internet. But now it seems like loot boxes are far more numerous. That's because companies realized DLC was only a one-time purchase. But what if there was a way to turn players into payers? Consistently doing that would yield high results. Then you got all those season passes where companies want you to put up $50 based on a promise. As video games become more and more expensive to make, the price of a new release has stayed the same for decades. And while any business, big or small, needs to make a profit, the lengths some companies go to monetize their games is absurd. Sometimes being so greedy to the point where they will compromise the design of their game. 343 and Creative Assembly went so far in this direction, crafting a mode specifically to integrate loot boxes into Halo Wars 2 and create a pay-to-win model. Madden and FIFA Ultimate Teams. Wow, those are so cool, ruined by pay-to-win loot boxes. Battlefield 1 and 4 offering literal shortcuts through the progression system. Think about that for a second. The designers created the system of XP, how it is earned, how much it takes to unlock things, and then decided to monetize a way for players to skip it entirely. Bungie literally cutting and reselling parts of Destiny 1 and 2 as DLC, making shaders consumable so players will have to buy them again, was not a decision made for the benefit of the player. Forza 5 offering just as many payable cars as ones you earn in-game. The list of DLC for The Sims alone is fucking staggering. Middle-earth Shadow of War, a single-player game, chose the loot box method of delivering rewards to players. Dead Space 3 interrupting the game to ask you to buy more parts. Train Simulator 2015 offering over $4,000 of DLC. Purchasable weapons in Black Ops 4 giving people an advantage. Microsoft charging you to remove ads on Solitaire. Fucking microtransactions in Solitaire. Then for some games, it can get so bad that functional microtransactions become more important than a functional game. I couldn't get into matches in COD World War II when it came out, but you bet your ass I could buy loot boxes, and then Fallout 76. Wow. easily one of the most embarrassing, blatant, empty cash grabs the industry has ever seen. Do you, as a player, want to have sections of the video game you bought sealed into randomized crates that are paid for with real money? Hell no. There's always a better alternative. Titanfall 2 is the shining example. It might not make the most money, but there's no bullshit involved. What you see is what you get, and the game isn't any worse or better off because of it. Companies have tried seemingly every slimy underrated just a bit more. Metal Gear Survive had the audacity to charge people $10 for an extra save slot. In Modern Warfare 2, you had to grind for those extra save slots. But in recent games, you could just buy it. Like, is that where we're at now? Valve and Bluehole opened up avenues to skin betting, selling and trading with other players, which leads to gambling websites and the notorious shitlords like Team Martin and Pro Syndicate trying to make money off this infamous CSGO lotto scandal. The increasingly aggressive monetization of video games had gotten so out of hand that it attracted the attention of several world governments. I mean, if you look at those leaked patents by Activision, it tells you everything. The intent is right there. Adhering to these patents, they want to make you as addicted as possible to spending money. They want to control you.
Yeah,
That's why Bungie decided to throttle how much XP you got.
Yeah.
I bet they wouldn't have done that if they weren't trying to sell me bright Ingram. The decline of gaming has manifested in so many different ways, and it hurts to talk about. The game industry I knew and loved has just gotten complacent with lazy titles, trend-chasing garbage, half-assed remasters, corporatization, over-monetization, and a lack of drive to create something new. Games as a service and early access become crutches for developers to lean on. When fans get upset at how dysfunctional and empty their latest release is, or wonder why game-breaking issues continue to exist, they use early access or we're working on it as their shield. Don't get me wrong, the good stuff is still out there, but you have to find it to the But with all this shit that's changed for the worse in gaming, it's starting to feel like a soulless assembly line production. And the way companies treat their consumers is making me lose faith in this industry. And that is how games
no longer in your possession. One friendly operator remaining. Seconds. 10 seconds left. We have been eliminated.
Why Warcraft 3 Reforged is so terrible. I wish I never played a Blizzard game ever. It too pains me to hear what Blizzard has become. You shall have your wish granted. Wait, no! Ah. Funny. My mind is completely blank now. I could have sworn I was just upset about something, but strange. I don't really... Sit with me. I have a tale for you. Oh boy, is it about video games? The fuck you think it is? Of course we're... What do you wish to tell me, old man? Well, long ago, video games were much simpler. There existed a company called Blizzard. Over time, Blizzard released several outstanding games that won not only awards, but the hearts of millions. With every new title, Blizzard managed to outdo themselves. They were like Tom Brady, and for many years, Blizzard commanded great respect from gamers everywhere. So what happened?
A bomb.
The games were great, right? And they kept making them? I don't believe you can target a single mistake and say this is where it all went wrong. Although Blizzard was well loved by many gamers,
10 seconds to insertion.
At some point, something in them began to twist and contort.
5 seconds to insertion.
They were no longer the godlike beings we saw them as.
You found a bomb. Make your way to its location and defuse
it. Than that. Tell me everything. If you insist. The decline of Blizzard is not a story. That was weird. The decline of Blizzard is not a story about a successful business that is now failing, but rather a business that continuously fails its fans. Blizzard was one of my favorite game developers of all time. My love for this company started when I was like 5 years old, and I've given them more than a decade's worth of support. Blizzard.
Yes, me lord.
Nintendo. Bungie. These were the companies I knew of growing up as a kid. All of them were gods in my eyes. Nothing makes me feel quite like reminiscing on the first time I ever played a real computer game. You know, sitting there with Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, Mouth Blaster. Dad bursts into the room, sits me down and says, "Son, you're almost 5 years old. But you've got a lot of manning up to do. It's time for a real game." And some StarCraft, and it was like I'm Harry Potter grabbing the wand that was destined for me. I have so many vivid memories of playing single-player campaign, custom games, loving the story, voice acting.
You called down the thunder, now reap the whirlwind.
I would go on and
no
on
longer in your
about
possession.
how awesome these
Down to
games
one
are,
friendly.
and hopefully I get to make a video about them someday. The storytelling was out of this world, but what really blew me away were the cinematics. That intro to Brood War. I loved that intro so much, I parodied it in a horribly irrelevant video. StarCraft was so awesome beyond what Blizzard created themselves, and the maps were allowed for unique custom games that anyone could play. Around this time, my brother and I somehow got our hands on a copy of Diablo. And holy hell, it scares me shitless.
You have dropped
So
the diffuser.
bloody and
All friendlies
graphic.
have been eliminated.
Later I realized in therapy just how traumatized I was by the Butcher. I can still hear his voice now.
Fresh meat.
Addicting, satisfying, Diablo was a terrifying introduction to RPGs. Years later, Chapow, Reign of Chaos, showed off the power of Blizzard's battle drums. Frozen Throne comes out and it's like, okay, what have I done to deserve this blessing? An RTS with heroes that level up in combat would set the foundation for what World of Warcraft would become. And you know this part of the story.
I'm Mr. T and I'm a Night Elf Mohawk. What's your game?
World of Warcraft took the world by storm. Earth and fire, heed my call. Much like RuneScape, WoW became a pop culture phenomenon. I'll never forget the South Park episode where Blizzard and Comedy Central collaborated to make fun of the game. There was so much to love about Blizzard and their community, their identity. You know, just the fun-loving spirit behind everything.
Oh, man. Poor Johnny.
Now, even though this video is going to be more on the negative side,
What?
I have a special place in my heart and memory for Blizzard as they were. The great people who were a part of
Overtime ആണല്ലേ sites reset ആയി
gave me that I bought. And that's not to say they haven't been good over the last decade. Overwatch was awesome. WoW Classic, an incredible trip down memory lane. Look, I'm not saying Blizzard as a whole is a reprehensible anti-gamer movement led by Anya Sarkeesian, whose sole purpose is to destroy all your favorite franchises and usher in the age of the Burning Legion. It's not that extreme, alright? Truth be told, I don't have much good to say about current Blizzard. And that's where I want to focus. On where they went wrong, how they destroyed their own reputation and image in my eyes, in the eyes of an old-time fan. When Blizzard tasted the cursed waters of Activision and merged with them in 2008, it wasn't a highly controversial move. At the time, COD 4 had just released 8 months earlier, Guitar Hero was the hottest brand since the Wii, and they hadn't milked any of those franchises to death. Back then, Activision wasn't the same money-grubbing company we know today. Or maybe they were and they were just really good at hiding it. But none of us had the foresight to predict just how much this would affect Blizzard's identity, their culture, and their games.
This to our people. Knowingly? No!
journey starts in July of 2010. Blizzard had a serious problem. StarCraft 2 absolutely killed it with its reveal, generating massive hype and sending shockwaves across all of Korea. It had been 12 years since Brood War. Fans could not wait. StarCraft 2 was coming out in 3 weeks, baby! However, Blizzard's official forums have been filled with vitriol and flame wars. Trolling and community toxicity was spiraling out of control, which diluted the discussions about the games themselves. Blizzard could not have this continue with the launch of StarCraft 2. How do we change this toxic part of our community? One executive asked. Weight loss programs and general hygiene classes, another blurted out. I've got it. People won't talk as much shit on the internet when they can be held accountable for it. So let's force everyone who uses our forums to display their real name. Take that, trolls.
Watch out!
Why are you so nice?
One friendly operator remaining.
How do we change this toxic part of our community without spitting in their face? This decision, of course,
Op 4
had the
eliminated
exact
all
reaction
friendlies.
you'd expect. The forums were flooded with complaints, and one thread reached over 11,000 replies. Look, I'm not saying let the trolls roam free in the forests of Buckland, but why wouldn't you just get moderators and or create stricter guidelines for using the forums? Forcing everyone to reveal personal information would not only discourage people from posting, but also punish people who did nothing wrong. Ultimately, this new change would have created more problems than it would solve, so Blizzard scrapped it. But the fact that Real ID was even considered as a possibility, let alone planned to be implemented across the board, was really just such a bizarre, out-of-touch thing to even attempt. And then there's this. I work in a charity. If they see I am a gamer, it could affect my employment prospects. Gamers have been oppressed since 2010, baby. But the outrage seemed to be only temporary. If we only knew what was in store for us down the line. Blizzard has a long list of battles in the courtroom. None more famous than Valve Corporation v. Activision Blizzard. This, of course, was over the legal rights to Defense of the Ancients, the most popular custom game for Warcraft 3. And it was a battle for the ages. Two of the biggest and most successful PC developers duking it out. Who will come out on top? From what I understand, Valve worked with Dota developer IceFrog, who was later hired by them, and they wanted to trademark Dota as their intellectual property. Blizzard, of course, didn't want that.
I don't want it.
But Valve had already filed a trademark. Now, it's complicated, but for whatever reason, Blizzard and Valve settled out of court, with Valve keeping the rights to Dota All-Stars for commercial purposes, and Blizzard would be able to use it within their own custom games. This appears to have been a mutual agreement, but with hindsight, we see just how badly Blizzard was shafted. Nobody thought Dota would turn into the massive esports juggernaut that it is today. But you have to wonder, how could Blizzard just let the magic lamp slip through their hands? Many fans lost faith in Blizzard's ability to retain the rights and provide the games they wanted. World of Warcraft has been Blizzard's main moneymaker for years, with a large, diverse, dedicated community. Throughout the Burning Legion and Wrath of the Lich King expansions, the game only grew in size. Cataclysm was a bit rocky, but it wasn't until May 2012 that Mists of Pandaria released, and a large portion of fans voiced their discontent. This was really the turning point for World of Warcraft and what turned many people off of that game. Blizzard reported that 14% of users had canceled their subscriptions, a loss of 13 million players, after a brand new expansion that's supposed to build the game up. Shortly after this, Blizzard stopped publicizing their subscription numbers, as showing a steady decline might further exacerbate the decline. There were many controversial changes to WoW over the years. Among many was the Dungeon Finder, an expedited way of finding players for raids and instances. Initially, you had to rally up a group of friends or other players and all commit hours to tackling these intense dungeons. And that was a lot of fun. It created so much community interaction. Many of WoW's community-oriented features were made more accessible at the cost of player agency. World of Warcraft started to feel less like a world and more of an automated experience. Why leave the main city if you can just hop into a queue and find a raid or instance anyways? In some ways, I'm willing to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt for WoW's decline in popularity. Keeping a game alive for that long is going to have some speed bumps. And even though many fans have disagreed with the direction Blizzard has taken, at least they finally came out with WoW Classic, and both games seem to be coexisting peacefully. But here's where we get into the real shit. Maybe it was just my experience, but I vividly remember the launch of Diablo 3 as being one of the single most disappointing game launches of all time, next to MCC.
What?
It was that bad. Not only had basically all of the depth been stripped away from Diablo 2, not only did it feel like a poor man's version of Diablo 2, but it was also just straight up broken. I waited years for this game, and within 4 hours of gameplay, I was like, this ain't it, Chief, and never looked back. The always online and DRM features were heavily criticized, totally unnecessary for people wanting to just play single player.
Single player is it, says Diablo 3. Mind if we force you to play online anyway, in case you change your mind? Kind of do as it happens, Diablo 3. Sorry, can't hear you over the sound of all my money!
The art direction was criticized, it didn't feel hellish, gameplay story was awful, excessive amounts of useless gear with 1% of that shit being actually usable. Everything was a bust. It just didn't feel like Diablo.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
Diablo 3 was the subject of numerous complaints by fair trade organizations across the world. In France alone, a consumer group reported that there were 1,500 complaints in 4 days. The organization, forgive me, K Choisier, asked Blizzard to, and this is my translation, tell us when the fuck the game is going to be playable. Be straight up, okay? Be a fucking homie. Blizzard responded by saying, there's a sticker on the box that says, internet connection required.
Fuck you!
The Fair Trade Commission alleged that Blizzard had violated consumer rights laws in South Korea. Hundreds of gamers from there demanded refunds, which Blizzard refused to grant until a month later. In Germany, the Federation of Consumer Organizations threatened legal action against Blizzard for their lack of transparency with the DRM, consumers' inability to resell the game, and then there was the auction house. A feature Blizzard implemented to make everyone's gaming experience much better, right? If the gameplay wasn't shallow enough, this fucking atrocity of a feature made it so players could literally put in real money to buy the best gear. This undercut the entire point of playing Diablo 2. The Western gear comes from playing stuff, filling monsters, doing quests. That's what makes it fulfilling. Bring your credit card information. It was one of the earliest and more egregious forms of microtransactions, as Blizzard took a cut of all the profits. It took them 2 years to realize how damaging the auction house was, and would shut it down completely in March of 2014. At this point, we all started to worry and wonder, how could Blizzard continue to leave in trouble?
The first defeat is always the best learning experience.
Bundle it so badly with Diablo 3. How could they betray it?
We didn't live up to the high we really set for ourselves.
This will be killer.
As WoW continued to lose subscribers, fans took it upon themselves to recreate the WoW game they wanted. Many private servers popped up offering different iterations of WoW that were no longer playable. You think when Burning Legion here's your server. Wrath of the Lich King, here's your server. Vanilla, Here's your server, Nostalgia. It wasn't illegal, but it showed a surprising demand for that classic vanilla experience. A service that you don't operate is bad for business, and in this case,
copyright infringement.
The solution? Shut it down, boys. They pulled out their Warhammer, sent a cease and desist order, and Nostalrius was shut down. But that only seemed to further aggravate an already upset fan base. A petition popped up begging Blizzard to consider a vanilla version of WoW. It received over 280,000 signatures. They couldn't deny the facts anymore. A lot of people didn't like WoW anymore, and they wanted the full version. Naturally, Blizzard was upset because they felt fans weren't appreciating and understanding the work they were putting in.
Remember that one bug that really pissed you off that we fixed like 2 years ago? Still there.
You have slain an enemy.
All the more worse.
An enemy has been slain.
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
Here's a lesson in healthy business practices. Don't
In
tell
war,
your
the
consumers
loss
what
of
they
life
don't want. Show them why they want what you're working on. Better yet, listen to what your fans are asking for and meet that
An ally
demand.
has been slain.
There's no point in showing this kind of contempt towards your audience unless your goal is to purposely damage your own reputation and goodwill. And then JL and Rex started talking shit about classic WoW. Our expansion.
That is
Remember when you had to like
An Autobot
spam
has
cities
fallen.
and say need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon.
You'd be a fool to love the older, obsolete, inferior version of WoW. Don't fucking head shut down the strongest Blizzard HQ on the development of the server. Blizzard was going to work with some of the Nostalrius devs to create WoW Classic. That would have been awesome. Spread some goodwill with the community. And these developers company never actually worked with them, and it really shows the single pride of Blizzard. For a long time, they just couldn't accept the fact that fans didn't like
An
the
enemy
new
has been
expansion
slain.
and how WoW was changing. But they were the ones out of touch, not the community.
Did you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
BlizzCon is the annual convention held by Blizzard. It's a massive, exciting event that showcases and promotes all their
They
major
took their best shot.
Celebrities make appearances, famous bands close out the show. It's just epic.
Who's this guy? This is a dwarf. And, you know what? I prefer a little person. Well, okay.
Not many developers have an entire convention at their disposal. And it's just Blizzard's way of showcasing their power, getting fans hyped to consume product. But in 2018,
Let's take the battle to them.
Behold, the new experience you've been waiting for. Diablo, for Immortal.
So we knew. For a new Diablo game.
War, the loss of life.
You want to explain yourself?
They were confused, and through a series of hilarious questions in the faces of the developers, the situation started to get out of hand.
So how long has Diablo Immortal been in development, and how is it affecting other Diablo projects?
Well, you may or may not have heard.
I can't imagine the embarrassment of having the crowd of people at your own convention turn against you. but it should showcase just how out of touch you are with them.
Yeah, in particular, the majority of the games are PC oriented. Why bring it to mobile? Are you trying to reach a new audience of players?
Charcoal remains a PR department.
Retreat! Is this an out of season?
Blizzard said they were response. Now, are once again supremely and genuinely out of touch with their community.
Am I so out of touch? No.
Blizzard, your fan base is mostly a PC gamer demographic. Those are the people who buy
That is
If you want to make a
impressive.
phone game, make a phone game. But don't expect your fans to give a shit, or not bombard you with questions like,
is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile?
An enemy has been slain.
Nothing!
Blizzard's ideals and principles were shelved in favor of tapping into the mobile gaming market. If you didn't think they were selling out with the auction,
Our comrades need it.
Play your tablet too.
Hey, that really sucks!
Video game development is notorious for how hellish it can be. An extremely competitive market filled with stressful deadlines, long hours, hectic work weeks, and worst of all, uncertainty of consistent employment. When a game is finished and out the door, many employees have to wonder if they too will be sent out. Well, Blizzard answered that question by laying off 800 employees in February of 2019. 800 people. Insurance. Employees education. Now it's time to cover the whole activity Blizzard saying. Get the fuck out of my reported $7.5 billion in sales. $1.8 billion in pure profit. Crack the goddamn champagne bottles. What an accomplishment. You guys remember the Wii U? Yeah, it was pretty gross and flopping super hard back in 2014. Nintendo was not looking good, and at that point the boss, Toru Iwata, took a pay cut to keep his employees. That was when Nintendo saw a 30% increase in profits.
The loss of life is regret.
Is it going to Bobby Kotick's wallet, or is it going to the people down the road
What a feat of strength
of their employees? And Blizzard did the same. They were just radically opposite statements.
That is impressive.
Over time,
An enemy has been slain.
Might not have been able to find a place for these 800 lost souls. But does that make it any less disheartening for a company to be celebrating its greatest success without sharing that with some of the people who made that happen?
In June 2003, the leaders of the Diablo project
Triple kill.
feeling like they weren't involved with
That
the
is
big decisions
impressive.
anymore and unable to guarantee their own employees' compensations and futures, the Blizzard North executives protested.
Retreat!
They even went so far as to tender their resignation.
An Autobot has fallen. Take no
Perceptions
pleasure
around
in this.
Blizzard had completely changed. And in October of 2019, a professional Hearthstone player, the martyr Rich Chung, made a political statement in support of the Hong Kong protest on a live stream.
Nuclear launch detected.
As Americans, we are sympathetic to those such as the undisputed case very profitable.
China's actually a free and loving country. Retreat!
Not taking any chances, Blizzard banned his ass. Fuck those new casters. No payment. You're gone. You're banned. Hope you learn your lesson. Speaking out about human rights
has been slain.
on our platform. This is not a political platform, except it is when it's convenient for us. Now, I did a whole video on this subject. Please check that out. A lot more in depth. On its own, it's a fucked up decision. But with the
You have caused enough destruction one day.
And you have the gall to post this on Twitter as if your company represents this statement wholeheartedly. Racism has no place in our society.
An enemy has been slain.
Nothing wrong with them. All is well-consumed product. Even if you weren't just another company morally grandstanding on these protests and this issue while it's current, is blatantly hypocritical. Outrage was so astronomical.
Base is under attack.
Our town is under siege. We're being attacked. We are under attack.
Destroying our city.
The town is under attack. Our town is under attack.
Let's
Now,
take
they
the
eventually
battle to
reduced
them.
the punishment,
Our
but
comrades
never
need aid.
actually directly addressed. Deserves a lot of credit for how you handled this situation. You're supposed to be a leader, and at this point, Blizzard employees were probably feeling
Every decision you make that us back to us. Defend.
finally we arrived at
Retreat!
a dream come true for me. I have no idea how badly I wanted to see the custom games and multiplayer revive.
Fight alongside us to defeat the Decepticons. One shall stand. Whippo kill. You are the savior of humanity. Their tyranny is at an end.
How can a company deteriorate product value especially since
An Autobot has fallen.
I speculate it was released in the state it was because of shareholder pressure, something that ex-members of Blizzard have said is tampering the way the company used to operate. Fans were beyond upset, and Warcraft 3 Reforged rightfully takes the ground for lowest
We cannot stand by and watch the destruction. In war, the loss of life An enemy has been slain.
Cutscenes remastered and remade. What we got was not that. In fact, Homeboy here actually showcases how the cinematography is less dynamic and interesting than the 2002 version.
I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
Your true destiny is like
I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Do you hear me? To the ends of the earth!
the loss of life
blasted because there is no ranking system at all. 3, art direction was butchered. Ew, gross, what is that? Sick. Original Warcraft 3 does look extremely dated, but everything is way more colorful and unique, recognizable. 4, classic Warcraft 3 and even StarCraft 1 had a system implemented to prevent people from being dropped from matches. If your connection was interrupted or a little shaky at times, you get like a 45-second countdown timer, and if your internet was good then, the match would continue. Reforged does not have this.
Being pulled early on, Lawlighter was trying to go for a greedy Ancient of Warcraft, and if this is cancelled, oh damn, that was not a bad BM leaving of the game. This was a disconnect once again. I'm almost 100% sure.
Yeah,
Lawlighter would never do this.
But he has enough mana. I don't need a blood mage. I don't need you. You're benched. Once this, it looks like another drop.
If your internet connection isn't perfect, you will be dropped from matches instantly. This happens even in campaign missions, where you get an automatic mission failed screen.
Anyways, ഞാൻ ഇന്നത്തേക്ക് നേരം നിർത്തുകയാണ്. And പതിപോലെ goodbye, GG's and
Warcraft 3
to be
Reforged
continued.
represents
Bye bye.
Blizzard's complete